Ethan Cole only went next door to return a borrowed screwdriver. 5 minutes. That's all it was supposed to be. But the moment he stepped inside Lena Hart's house, he knew something was wrong. A shattered glass on the kitchen floor, tension so thick it pressed against his chest, and a woman trying to hold herself together while her marriage crumbled right in front of him. Ethan should have turned around and walked away. He should have pretended he didn't see anything, but he didn't. And that one decision changed everything. Please follow this story to the end, hit like, and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story has traveled. Ethan Cole didn't think much about returning the screwdriver. It had been sitting on his kitchen counter for 3 days. Borrowed from Marcus Hart next door when Ethan's toolbox came up short during a Saturday afternoon attempt to fix his son's bike. Marcus had waved it off like it was nothing, told him to keep it as long as he needed, but Ethan didn't like leaving things unfinished. So when he finally got a moment between dropping his son at school and heading to work, he grabbed the screwdriver and walked next door. The neighborhood was the kind where people still knew each other's names. Not in that overly friendly, intrusive way, but enough that you'd wave from the driveway or offer to grab someone's mail if they were out of town. Ethan had lived here for 2 years now, ever since the divorce settled and he got primary custody of his 6-year-old son, Jamie. It wasn't a big house, nothing impressive, but it was theirs, stable, quiet, exactly what Jamie needed after everything they'd been through. Marcus and Lena Hart had been next door since before Ethan moved in. Marcus was the kind of guy who smiled easily, talked about golf and work functions, drove a sleek sedan that he washed every Sunday morning like it was a religious ritual. Lena was quieter, polite. She'd wave from the porch sometimes, always dressed like she was headed somewhere important, even when she wasn't. Ethan didn't know much about her beyond surface-level pleasantries. She seemed fine. They seemed fine. The kind of couple that had their life together in ways Ethan was still figuring out. He knocked twice on the front door and waited, shifting the screwdriver from one hand to the other. The morning was crisp, the kind of early autumn day where the air smelled like dried leaves and wood smoke from someone's fireplace. He could hear birds chirping in the oak tree that separated their properties, could see Mrs. Henderson across the street watering her garden like she did every morning at exactly 8:30. No answer. He knocked again, a little louder this time, then heard something from inside. Muffled voices, sharp and strained. He hesitated, hands still raised. Maybe they were arguing, maybe this wasn't a good time. He was about to leave the screwdriver on the porch and go when the door suddenly swung open. Lena stood there, face pale, eyes a little too wide. She looked startled, like she'd forgotten the world outside existed. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail that had come partially loose, and she was wearing jeans and a sweater that looked expensive but rumpled, like she'd slept in it. "Ethan," she said, voice stiff. "Hi." "Hey, sorry, I just wanted to return this." He held up the screwdriver, borrowed it from Marcus last week. She stared at it for a second like she didn't understand what it was, then nodded quickly. "Right, yeah, come in." "I can just leave it here." "No, it's fine, come in." She stepped back, opening the door wider, and there was something in her tone that wasn't quite insistence, but wasn't quite invitation either. More like she needed someone else in the house, even a neighbor she barely knew. Ethan hesitated, then walked inside. The house smelled faintly of coffee and something floral he couldn't place, maybe one of those candles his ex-wife used to buy. Clean, put together. But the air felt wrong, like walking into a room right after a fire alarm stopped ringing. That particular silence that comes after something loud and terrible. He noticed the broken glass first, scattered across the kitchen floor near the island, glinting under the overhead lights. Little shards everywhere, spread out in a pattern that suggested violence. Lena followed his gaze and her jaw tightened. "I dropped it," she said flatly. "Clumsy." Ethan didn't believe her. He'd dropped plenty of glasses in his time, especially in those first chaotic months after the divorce, when he was trying to manage a household alone. The pieces were too spread out, too violent. That wasn't a drop. That was a throw. That was anger given physical form. Before he could say anything, footsteps pounded down the hallway, and Marcus appeared, suit jacket half on, phone pressed to his ear. He looked annoyed, distracted, like he was already somewhere else in his head. His tie was loose around his neck, and there was a spot on his collar that might have been coffee. "I don't care what the client said, Jeff. We agreed on the terms last month. If they want to renegotiate now, that's their problem, not ours. He paused, glanced at Ethan without really seeing him, then turned back toward the front door. I'll call you from the car. Yeah, fine. Whatever. He ended the call, shoved the phone into his pocket with more force than necessary, and finally looked at Ethan properly. Ethan, didn't know you were here. Just returning the screwdriver. Right, thanks. Marcus didn't reach for it, didn't even look at it. His attention flicked to Lena for half a second, something cold passing between them, something Ethan couldn't read but felt in his gut. Then Marcus grabbed his keys from the counter, the metal jangling loud in the tense silence. I have to go. Meeting in 20. Marcus, Lena started, voice tight, like she was trying to hold on to something that was already slipping away. We'll talk later, he said, not looking at her. And then he was gone, door slamming behind him hard enough to rattle the frame and send a small picture on the wall slightly crooked. The silence that followed was suffocating. Ethan could hear the refrigerator humming, could hear a clock ticking somewhere, could hear his own breathing. All the small sounds that get drowned out by normal life but become deafening in moments like this. Lena stood there, arms crossed over her chest, staring at the closed door like she was waiting for it to open again. Like maybe Marcus would come back and apologize, explain, make it right. But the door stayed closed. And after a moment, her shoulders sagged in a way that told Ethan she hadn't really expected anything different. Ethan cleared his throat. You okay? She blinked, then turned to him with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. The kind of smile people wear when they're trying to convince themselves more than anyone else. I'm fine, just one of those mornings, you know? He didn't push. Wasn't his business. He'd learned that lesson the hard way during his own divorce, when well-meaning friends and family kept asking questions he didn't want to answer. Sometimes the kindest thing you could do was let people keep their dignity. But something about the way she said it, like she was trying to convince herself more than him, made him uneasy. Made him think of his ex-wife in those final months. How she'd smiled and said everything was fine right up until she packed her bags. You want help cleaning that up? He nodded toward the glass. No, I've got it. She walked over to the kitchen, movement stiff like her body hurt, and grabbed a broom from the closet. Started sweeping. Her movements were too fast, too sharp. Angry. The bristles scraped against the tile with each stroke, loud and harsh. Ethan set the screwdriver on the counter, right next to a bowl of fruit that looked too perfect to be real. All right, well, if you need anything. Why do people say that? She stopped sweeping and looked at him, really looked at him. And there was something raw in her expression, something desperate. If you need anything. What does that even mean? What am I supposed to say? Yes, actually, I need you to fix my marriage. I need you to tell me why my husband barely looks at me anymore. I need you to explain when everything fell apart and why I didn't see it coming. She stopped herself, exhaled hard, and shook her head. Sorry. That wasn't fair. You were just being polite. Ethan didn't know what to say. He'd stumbled into something he didn't understand, something raw and unfinished. This wasn't a simple marital spat. This was deeper, older, the kind of wound that had been festering for a while. It's okay, he said quietly, meaning it. She laughed, but it came out bitter, hollow. No, it's not, but thanks for pretending. She went back to sweeping, and Ethan stood there awkwardly, torn between leaving and staying. He should leave. This wasn't his problem. He had his own life to manage, his own kid to worry about, his own emotional baggage to sort through. But something kept him rooted in place. Maybe it was the look in her eyes. Maybe it was the memory of his own worst days when he'd needed someone to just stand there and not run. Maybe it was just basic human decency. You don't have to stay, Lena said without looking up. I'm fine, really. You keep saying that. Because it's true. Is it? She stopped again, gripping the broom handle tightly enough that her knuckles went white. For a moment, he thought she might tell him to leave, might retreat behind that polite mask people wear when they don't want anyone to see what's really happening. Instead, she just looked tired, bone-deep exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. I don't know, she admitted, voice barely above a whisper. Ethan leaned against the counter, giving her space but not leaving. He didn't say anything. Sometimes the best thing you could do was just be present. Let someone know they weren't alone, even if you couldn't fix anything. After a long moment, Lena set the broom down and sat on one of the kitchen stools, shoulders sagging like all the fight had drained out of her. How long has it been like this? Ethan asked gently. Like what? Whatever this is. Lena was quiet for a long time, staring at her hands folded in her lap. Her wedding ring caught the light, a simple gold band that suddenly looked too heavy. I don't know. Months, maybe? It's hard to tell when things start falling apart because it doesn't happen all at once. It's just little things. He works late. He's on his phone constantly. He doesn't talk to me the way he used to, doesn't look at me the same way. And when I try to bring it up, he acts like I'm being paranoid or dramatic, like I'm imagining problems that don't exist. She looked at Ethan, eyes glassy. Am I being dramatic? Am I crazy for thinking something's wrong? I don't think so. I feel like I'm losing my mind, like I'm watching my marriage fall apart, and I'm the only one who sees it. Everyone else thinks we're fine. We post pictures on social media. We go to dinner parties. We smile and laugh and play the part of the happy couple. And all the while, I'm standing there thinking, when did we stop being real with each other? Ethan thought about his ex-wife, the months before everything collapsed, the excuses, the distance, the way she'd look at him like he was a stranger she'd met at a party, not someone she'd promised to spend her life with, the way she'd started staying late at work, started taking weekend trips with friends he'd never met, started sleeping on her side of the bed like there was an invisible wall between them. You're not losing your mind, Hysterius, he said. You're just paying attention. Lena wiped at her eyes quickly, like she was embarrassed to be falling apart in front of a neighbor she barely knew. Sorry, you didn't come here for this. You just wanted to return a screwdriver, and I'm dumping all my problems on you. It's okay. It's not. I barely know you. Sometimes that makes it easier, Ethan said. Strangers don't have expectations. They can't judge you based on who they think you should be. She smiled a little at that. A real one this time, small but genuine. Yeah, maybe you're right. Ethan glanced at the clock on the wall. He was already late for work, but he didn't move. Something told him this mattered more. Do you want coffee? Lena asked suddenly, standing up like she needed something to do with her hands. I should probably get going. Right, of course. She stood up quickly, brushing her hands on her jeans like she needed to appear composed, even though they both knew she was barely holding it together. Thanks for the screwdriver. And for, listening. Not running away screaming. Any time. Told me cheese. He meant it. And somehow she seemed to know that. Ethan didn't see Lena again for 3 days. He thought about her, though, more than he probably should have. He'd catch himself staring at the Hart house from his kitchen window, wondering if she was okay, if Marcus had come home that night, if they talked, if anything had gotten better, or if it had just gotten worse in that quiet, insidious way problems do when you don't address them. It wasn't his business. He kept reminding himself of that. She was a neighbor, someone he'd helped out in a moment of crisis. Nothing more. But the look on her face kept haunting him. That particular expression of someone who knows the truth but is too afraid to face it. On Thursday evening, as he was pulling weeds from the front yard while Jamie played with his toy cars on the driveway, Lena appeared on her porch. She was wearing jeans and an oversized sweater, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked like she hadn't slept much. Dark circles under her eyes, skin a little too pale. Hey, she called over. Ethan straightened, wiping dirt off his hands onto his jeans. Hey. Can I ask you something? Sure. She hesitated, glancing back at her house like she was making sure no one was watching, making sure Marcus wasn't there. Then she walked across the lawn toward him, stopping a few feet away. Close enough to talk without shouting, far enough to maintain some kind of boundary. Do you think people change? She asked. Like, really change? Or do they just become more of who they've always been? Ethan thought about it, about his ex-wife, about the signs he'd ignored, about the version of her he'd fallen in love with and the version she'd become. I think people can change, but most of the time they just stop hiding who they've always been. Lena nodded slowly, like that confirmed something she'd been afraid to admit. Yeah, that's what I thought too. Jamie looked up from his cars, noticing Lena for the first time. "Hi, Miss Lena." She smiled at him, warmer this time, more genuine. "Hi, Jamie, what are you building?" "A racetrack. Want to see?" "Maybe later, buddy," Ethan said gently. "Miss Lena's just saying hi." "It's okay," Lena said. She crouched down next to Jamie, inspecting his elaborate setup of Hot Wheels tracks and improvised ramps made from cardboard and tape. "This looks amazing. You're really good at this." Jamie beamed, chest puffing up with pride. "Thanks. My dad helped me with the ramp part. I did the rest myself." "Your dad's pretty cool, huh?" "The coolest." Ethan felt something tighten in his chest. He didn't get moments like this often. Someone else seeing him as a good dad, seeing Jamie happy and well-adjusted. It mattered more than it should have. Made him feel like maybe he was doing something right, even on the days when he felt like he was barely keeping his head above water. Lena stood back up, brushing off her knees. "You're doing a good job with him." "Thanks. Trying. It shows." She wrapped her arms around herself, even though it wasn't particularly cold. "Marcus is gone again. Another business trip. Dallas this time. He left this morning." "How long?" 3 days. Maybe 4. He wasn't sure." She stared at the ground, jaw working. "He used to tell me when he was leaving. We used to plan around it. Now he just goes. Leaves a note on the counter or sends a text from the airport. Like I'm his roommate, not his wife." Ethan didn't know what to say to that. The pain in her voice was evident, raw and fresh like a wound that wouldn't heal. "I checked his credit card statement," she continued, voice lower now, ashamed. "I know I shouldn't have. It's a violation of privacy or trust or whatever, but I did. And there are charges I don't recognize. Hotels in cities he's never mentioned visiting, restaurants he's never told me about, expenses that don't line up with the work trips he's supposedly taking." "Did you ask him about them?" "I tried. Last week. I showed him the statement and asked him to explain, and he—" She trailed off, blinking back tears. "He looked at me like I was crazy, said I was being controlling, accused me of not trusting him, turned the whole thing around like I was the problem for asking questions instead of just accepting whatever he told me." "Do you believe him?" She looked at him, and the answer was written all over her face. In the slump of her shoulders, the way her hands trembled slightly, the way she couldn't quite meet his eyes. "No," she whispered. "I don't." Ethan wanted to tell her she was wrong, that she was overthinking it, that Marcus was probably exactly where he said he was, doing exactly what he said he was doing. But he'd been through this before. He knew what it looked like when someone was lying. And more importantly, he knew what it felt like to be the person everyone told to stop worrying, to trust, to believe. Right up until the moment when the truth came crashing down and everyone acted surprised. "Then trust your gut," he said. "What if my gut is wrong?" "Then you'll apologize and move on. But if it's right and you ignore it, you'll regret it for a long time." She nodded, wiping at her eyes with the sleeve of her sweater. "I should go. Let you get back to your evening." "Lena, thank you," she said, cutting him off, "for listening, for not telling me I'm crazy. You're not crazy." "Then why does it feel like I am?" She didn't wait for an answer, just turned and walked back to her house. And Ethan watched her go, feeling helpless and angry on her behalf. That night, after Jamie went to bed, Ethan sat on his back porch with a beer he wasn't really drinking, just holding it, letting the condensation drip down the bottle and onto his jeans. The lights were on in the Hart house. He could see Lena moving around inside, pacing back and forth in the living room like she couldn't sit still, like her own skin was too tight. He pulled out his phone, hesitated, then typed a message. "You okay over there?" A minute later, his phone buzzed. "Not really, but I will be." He stared at the screen, then typed again. "If you need to talk, I'm around." "Thank you. That means more than you know." He set the phone down and leaned back in his chair, staring up at the sky. The stars were barely visible through the light pollution, just faint pinpricks scattered across the dark. He thought about his ex-wife again, about the lies he'd believed because it was easier than facing the truth. About the moment he finally stopped pretending and everything fell apart. about how much it had hurt, but also how much freer he'd felt once it was over. Lena was standing at that edge right now. He could see it, and he knew exactly how much it hurt. The next afternoon, Lena showed up at his door. Ethan had just gotten home from work, still in his uniform from the warehouse, and he wasn't expecting anyone. When he opened the door, she was standing there with her arms wrapped around herself, eyes red and swollen like she'd been crying for hours. "Can I come in?" she asked, voice hoarse. "Yeah, of course." She stepped inside, glancing around like she was cataloging everything. The toys scattered across the living room floor, the dishes stacked in the sink waiting to be washed, the general organized chaos of a single dad's house. None of it Instagram-worthy or put together, just real life happening in real time. "Sorry about the mess," Ethan said. "Jamie's not great at cleaning up after himself yet. We're working on it. It's fine. It's real." She sat down on the couch, hands folded tightly in her lap, like she was trying to hold herself together through sheer force of will. "I needed somewhere real." Ethan sat across from her in the worn armchair he'd bought at a yard sale. "What happened?" "I called him, Marcus, while he was in Dallas, just to check in, see how his day was going, and a woman answered his phone." Ethan's stomach dropped. He'd suspected it, sure, but hearing it confirmed was different, made it real in a way speculation never could. "She said he was in the shower," Lena continued, voice shaking. "She said she'd have him call me back, and then she hung up, just like that, casual. Like it was completely normal for her to be answering my husband's phone while he was showering." "Did he call you back?" 3 hours later, said it was a colleague, said they were working late on a presentation, and he left his phone at the conference table when he went to use the bathroom. Said she was just being helpful. Said I was overreacting. Her voice broke on the last word. "Do you believe him?" She looked at him, tears spilling over and running down her cheeks. "No, I don't. And I hate that I don't. I hate that I'm sitting here questioning everything. I hate that I feel crazy even though I know I'm not. I hate that I gave this man 5 years of my life, and this is what I get in return." Ethan moved to sit next to her on the couch, close but not touching, giving her space to fall apart without crowding her. "You're not crazy. Then why does it feel like I am? Why does he make me feel like I'm inventing problems that don't exist?" "Because that's what people do when they're hiding something. They make you doubt yourself so you stop asking questions. It's easier to make you feel crazy than to admit they're lying." Lena wiped her face roughly with both hands. "I don't know what to do. I don't know how to move forward from this. What do you want to do?" She was quiet for a long time, staring at her wedding ring, like it was a puzzle she couldn't solve. Then she said, "I want to know the truth, even if it destroys me, even if it confirms every terrible thing I've been thinking. I need to know. I can't keep living in this limbo where I'm questioning everything and getting no answers." Ethan nodded slowly. "Then we'll find out." "We? If you want help, I'm offering." She looked at him, searching his face for something. Doubt, pity, ulterior motives, some hidden agenda. Whatever she was looking for, she didn't seem to find it. Just saw someone offering help with no strings attached. "Why would you do that?" she asked. "Why would you get involved in this mess?" "Because you shouldn't have to do it alone. Because I've been where you are, and I know how lonely it feels. And because it's the right thing to do." Her chin trembled, and for a second, he thought she might break down completely. But she didn't. She took a shaky breath, straightened her shoulders, and nodded. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay. Help me." Marcus came home 2 days later. Ethan watched from his driveway as the sleek sedan pulled in, watched Marcus step out in his expensive suit, briefcase in hand, smile easy and practiced like nothing was wrong. Like he hadn't just spent 3 days doing who knows what with who knows who while his wife fell apart at home. Lena met him at the door. From where Ethan stood pretending to check his mailbox, he couldn't hear what they were saying, but he could see the body language. Marcus leaning in to kiss her. Lena turning her head slightly so it landed on her cheek instead of her lips. A small gesture, barely noticeable, but it spoke volumes. Marcus didn't seem to notice. Or if he did, he didn't care. That night, Ethan got a text from Lena. He's acting like nothing happened, like everything's fine. Like I didn't talk to another woman on his phone. Is it fine? No. Then don't pretend it is. I don't know how to stop pretending. I've been doing it for so long, I don't remember how to be honest. Ethan stared at that message for a long time before responding. Yes, you do. You're just scared. Aren't you ever scared? Every day. But I do what needs to be done anyway. There was a long pause before she replied, Will you help me? Really help me? I think I need to know what he's really doing, where he's really going, who he's really with. Yes, even if it gets messy, especially then. They started small. Lena would come over in the evenings when Marcus was working late, which was most nights now. She'd sit on Ethan's porch or in his living room after Jamie went to bed, and she'd talk about her marriage, about the man Marcus used to be, or at least the man she thought he was, about the woman she used to be before she started shrinking herself to fit into his life, into his world, into his vision of who she should be. I gave up so much, she said one night, voice hollow and distant. I had a job I loved, marketing director at a firm downtown. Good salary, great benefits, a team that respected me, friends I'd go out with after work. A whole life. And he said it would be temporary, just until he got established at his firm, just until things settled down and we could both focus on our careers. But they never settled down. There was always another promotion to chase, another client to impress, another reason why I needed to be the one handling everything at home. And now I don't even recognize myself anymore. I look in the mirror and I see this stranger who gave up everything for a man who can't even be bothered to tell me the truth. You're still in there, Ethan said. You just forgot how to see yourself. How do you know? Because I've been there. After my divorce, I didn't know who I was anymore. I'd spent so long being what she needed, what she wanted, bending myself into shapes that weren't natural just to keep her happy. I lost track of what I needed, what made me happy, what I wanted out of life. It took a long time to find that again. How did you do it? I stopped waiting for permission, stopped asking if it was okay to take up space, to have opinions, to want things. I just started living again. For me? For Jamie. And eventually, it got easier. Not perfect. Not some magical transformation, just easier. Lena looked at him, something shifting in her expression, something that looked like hope mixed with fear. You're a good person, Ethan. I'm just trying to do the right thing. That's all any of us can do. That's more than most people do. 2 weeks later, Marcus announced another trip. Houston this time. 4 days. Some big client meeting that supposedly required his presence, his expertise, his charm. Lena didn't argue, didn't ask questions, didn't cry or plead or demand he stay. She just nodded and smiled and said she hoped the meetings went well, and Ethan could see the rage simmering beneath her calm exterior. But the moment Marcus's car pulled out of the driveway, she called Ethan. I want to follow him, she said without preamble. What? Oh, I want to know where he's really going, what he's really doing, who he's really with, and I can't do it alone. I need you. Ethan should have said no, should have told her it was a bad idea, that it wouldn't change anything, that some truths were better left buried, that confronting infidelity head-on never worked out the way you hoped it would. But he didn't say any of that. Okay, he said. When does he leave? Tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. sharp. He's always punctual about these things. I'll pick you up at 5:45. They sat in Ethan's truck outside the Hart House the next morning, engine off, watching the sun rise over the quiet street in shades of pink and gold. Marcus's car was still in the driveway, packed and ready, briefcase visible in the back seat next to what looked like a garment bag. You sure about this? Ethan asked, giving her one last chance to back out. Lena nodded, jaw set in a way that reminded him of soldiers preparing for battle. I'm sure. I need to know. Whatever it is, I need to see it with my own eyes. At exactly 6 a.m., Marcus walked out, got in his car, and drove off. They waited 30 seconds, then followed. Not too close, not too obvious, just close enough to keep him in sight as he headed toward the highway, following the flow of early morning traffic. But he didn't take the exit for the airport, the one that would lead him to his supposed flight to Houston. Instead, he kept driving, south, toward the city, Taking exits, Lena recognized from her old commute. Streets she used to drive when she still had her job, her life, her identity beyond being Mrs. Marcus Hart. Lena's breath hitched. Where's he going? This isn't the way to the airport. I don't know, but we're about to find out. They followed him for another 25 minutes, through downtown traffic, past office buildings just starting to wake up, until he pulled into the parking lot of a hotel. Not a business hotel. Not some generic chain near the convention center. A boutique place downtown. Expensive. Intimate. The kind of place you took someone you wanted to impress. Marcus got out, grabbed his bag and briefcase, and walked inside like he owned the place. Confident, casual, no hesitation. Stay here, Ethan said. No, I'm coming with you. Lena, I'm coming with you, she repeated, already opening her door. This is my marriage, my life. I need to see this. They walked into the lobby together, hanging back near the entrance, trying to look casual. Marcus was at the front desk, chatting with the clerk, smiling that easy smile of his, the one that had probably charmed Lena all those years ago, the one that made people trust him, like him, believe whatever he said. And then she appeared. A woman. Younger than Lena by at least 5 years, maybe more. Blonde hair styled in loose waves, dressed in heels, and a dress that looked like it cost more than Ethan's monthly mortgage payment. She walked right up to Marcus, confident and familiar, slid her arm around his waist like she'd done it 1,000 times before, and kissed him. Not a colleague kiss. Not a friendly peck. Not even a professional greeting between coworkers. A kiss that left absolutely no room for misinterpretation. Deep and intimate and real. Lena made a sound, something between a gasp and a sob, a noise of pure anguish, and Ethan grabbed her arm, pulling her back outside before Marcus could see them, before he could spin another lie, craft another excuse, make her doubt what she'd just seen with her own eyes. She stood on the sidewalk outside the hotel, shaking violently, staring at nothing. Cars passed by. People walked past on their way to work. The world kept turning like nothing had happened, even though Lena's entire reality had just shattered. Lena, I knew, she whispered, voice breaking. I knew. But seeing it, that's different. Suspecting something and seeing it are two completely different things. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. She looked at him, tears streaming down her face, and there was something in her expression that was equal parts devastation and rage. I gave him everything, my career, my friends, my independence, my trust, everything. And he threw it away for that. For some woman young enough to be... She couldn't finish the sentence. Ethan didn't have an answer. There wasn't one. No combination of words that would make this better or hurt less or undo what they'd just witnessed. They sat in the truck for a long time, neither of them speaking. Lena cried quietly, and Ethan just sat there, letting her process, giving her space to feel everything she needed to feel. Finally, she wiped her face with her sleeves and straightened her shoulders in a gesture that looked almost military. Take me home, she said, voice steadier now, harder. Okay. And then I need your help with something else. What? She looked at him, and for the first time since he'd met her, he saw something other than fear or confusion in her eyes. He saw resolve. Cold, clear, unwavering resolve. I need to end this, she said. For real this time. No more pretending, no more hoping things will get better. I need to end my marriage and I need to do it right. Ethan nodded, starting the engine. All right, let's do it. The drive back was silent, except for the hum of the engine and the occasional sniffle from Lena as she stared out the window at the passing streets. Ethan didn't try to fill the quiet with empty reassurances or meaningless platitudes. There was nothing to say that would make it better, and he knew from experience that sometimes the worst thing you could do was pretend everything was fixable with the right words. Some pain you just had to sit with. Let it run its course like a fever. When they pulled into the driveway, Lena didn't move, just sat there, hands folded in her lap, staring at the house she'd shared with Marcus for 5 years, the house where they'd celebrated anniversaries and hosted dinner parties and pretended to be happy, the house that now felt like a mausoleum for a marriage that had died months ago, maybe longer. I don't want to go in there, she said quietly. You don't have to, not yet. But I do. Because if I don't, I'll just sit here forever. And I can't do that. She took a deep breath, steeling herself. I need to gather evidence. Bank statements, credit card records, anything that proves what he's been doing. Because when I confront him, when this goes to court, I don't want him to be able to lie his way out of it. I want documentation, proof, something he can't twist or explain away. You think he'll try? I know he will. He's good at it. He's been doing it for months, probably longer, making me doubt myself, making me feel crazy for asking questions. He'll do the same thing to a judge, to a lawyer, to anyone who'll listen unless I have hard evidence. She opened the door and stepped out, shoulders straightening like she was preparing for battle, like she was putting on armor. Will you come inside, just for a bit? I don't want to be alone in there right now. That house feels poisoned. Ethan nodded. Yeah, let me just text my neighbor. She watches Jamie sometimes after school. I'll let her know I might be late picking him up. They walked into the Hart house together, and it felt different now. Colder. Like the truth had stripped away whatever warmth had been left, revealing the skeleton underneath. The expensive furniture, the carefully chosen artwork, the designer throw pillows that probably cost more than Ethan's weekly grocery budget. All of it suddenly looked hollow, performative, a stage set for a play that had closed months ago. Lena went straight to the home office, a small room off the hallway that Marcus used for work. She sat down at the desk and opened the laptop, her movements sharp and precise, anger giving her focus. Do you know his password? Ethan asked. We used to share everything, passwords, accounts, bank information, everything. He always said married couples shouldn't have secrets from each other. She laughed bitterly at the irony. Guess he never thought I'd actually look. She typed something in, and the screen unlocked without protest. She pulled up the browser history first. Hotels, restaurants, jewelry stores, flight bookings to cities Marcus had never mentioned, and then email accounts Lena didn't recognize. Secondary accounts he'd set up, probably thinking she'd never stumble across them. He has a separate email, she said, voice tight with barely controlled rage. I didn't even know. How did I not know? Ethan stood behind her, watching as she clicked through the inbox. The emails were there, laid out like evidence at a crime scene. Confirmations for hotel stays that didn't match his supposed business trips. Flight bookings for 2. Messages from her. The blonde woman from the hotel, casual and familiar. Inside jokes. Pet names. Plans for weekends away. Like they'd been doing this for months, maybe longer. Lena's hand trembled as she scrolled, each new email a fresh wound. Her name is Rachel, Lena said flatly, reading one of the messages. She works at his firm, junior associate, 28 years old. She laughed, but it came out strangled. Of course she does. Of course she's younger. Of course she works with him. It's so predictable it's almost funny. Lena, I met her once, at a company dinner about 6 months ago. She shook my hand and told me how lucky Marcus was to have me, how she hoped to find a relationship like ours someday. Lena closed the laptop hard enough that Ethan flinched. She knew, the whole time, she knew. She looked me in the eye and lied to my face, and I was too stupid to see it. You're not stupid. She's a good liar. They both are. That doesn't make me feel better. Ethan didn't know what to say to that. The betrayal wasn't just Marcus anymore. It was everyone who knew and said nothing. Everyone who smiled to Lena's face while watching her marriage fall apart behind her back. Everyone who participated in the lie, actively or passively. I need to print these, Lena said, opening the laptop again with renewed determination. All of them. Every single email, every receipt, every piece of evidence. Before he gets back and realizes I've been in here. Before he has a chance to delete anything or cover his tracks. You think he'll delete them? I think he'll do whatever it takes to protect himself. He's always been good at that. Good at making himself look like the victim, the innocent party. I need to make sure I have copies of everything before he has a chance to spin this his way. They spent the next hour and a half combing through everything. Bank statements showed withdrawals Lena had never seen, large sums of cash taken out at ATMs across the city, charges at places Marcus had never mentioned, expensive dinners for 2 at restaurants Lena had never been to, weekend getaways to beach resorts while he told Lena he was at conferences. It was all there, a comprehensive record of deception. He's been paying her, Lena said, staring at the screen in disbelief. $2,000 a month for the last 4 months. Direct deposits from our joint account to hers. For what? I don't know. Maybe to keep quiet. Maybe because he thinks that's what you do in these situations. Maybe just because he can. She saved the documents to a USB drive. Her movement's mechanical now. Numb. I gave up my career for him. I gave up my friends, my independence, my entire identity. And he's been spending our money. Money we were supposed to be saving for a house, for kids, for our future, on her. Ethan leaned against the desk, arms crossed. He wanted to punch something, wanted to track Marcus down and make him face what he'd done. But violence wouldn't help, wouldn't change anything. What are you going to do? I'm going to lawyer up. I'm going to take half of everything, maybe more if I can prove financial misconduct, and then I'm going to walk away and never look back. I'm going to rebuild my life without him in it. Good. She looked at him surprised. You don't think I should try to work it out? Try counseling or separation or giving him another chance? Do you want to work it out? Lena was quiet for a moment, really considering the question. Then she shook her head. No, I don't. I just thought someone would tell me I should try harder, that I'm giving up too easily, that marriage is supposed to be work, and I should fight for it. You're not giving up. You're choosing yourself. There's a difference. And you did fight for it. You fought alone while he was off with someone else. That's not a marriage worth saving. Her eyes filled with tears again, but she blinked them back. Thank you for being here, for not judging me, for not telling me to stand by my man or some other antiquated nonsense. Nothing to judge. You're doing what you need to do. She finished copying the files and tucked the USB drive into her pocket like it was precious cargo, like it held her entire future, which in a way it did. I'm going to call a lawyer tomorrow. Someone he doesn't know, someone who won't tell him what I'm doing, someone who will fight for me. You want me to help you find one? Would you? Yeah, I'll ask around. Get some recommendations. She stood up, looking around the office like she was seeing it for the first time. I hate this room. I always have. It smells like him, like expensive cologne and lies and broken promises. Ethan almost smiled at that. You want to get out of here? More than anything. They left the house and sat on Ethan's porch instead. The afternoon sun was warm, filtering through the oak tree and creating patterns of light and shadow across the worn wooden planks. The neighborhood was quiet except for the occasional car passing by and the sound of someone mowing their lawn a few houses down. Normal life continuing while Lena's world fell apart. What happens when he gets back? Ethan asked. I don't know. I guess I'll act normal, pretend everything's fine until I'm ready to leave, until I have everything in place. You think you can do that? Pretend? I don't have a choice. If I confront him now before I have a lawyer, before I have a plan, he'll twist it around. He'll make me look like the bad guy. I need to be smart about this. Strategic. Ethan nodded. You need a place to stay? When it all goes down? She looked at him, startled. I can't ask you to do that. You're not asking. I'm offering. Ethan, you barely know me. I know enough. I know you need help, and I'm in a position to give it. That's all that matters. She stared at him for a long moment, eyes searching his face like she was trying to solve a puzzle. Why are you doing this? Really? You keep helping me, and I don't understand why. Ethan thought about it, about his ex-wife, about the nights he spent alone after she left, trying to figure out where everything went wrong, about the way people had looked at him like his marriage falling apart was somehow his fault, like he should have tried harder, been better, been more. About how alone he'd felt, how isolated, how much he'd wished someone had just shown up and said, I see you and I'm here, and you don't have to do this by yourself. Because nobody helped me when I needed it, he said quietly. When my marriage fell apart, when I was trying to figure out how to be a single dad and keep my life together, everyone had opinions, but nobody actually showed up. They all had advice about what I should do differently, how I should handle things, but when it came down to actually being there, they disappeared. And I don't want you to go through that alone. Nobody should have to. Lena's chin trembled, but she didn't cry, just nodded. Okay. Thank you. I don't know how to repay you for all this. You don't need to repay me. Just focus on taking care of yourself. They sat in silence for a while, and then Lena's phone buzzed. She pulled it out, and her expression hardened into something resembling stone. It's him, she said. Texting from the hotel, asking how my day is, asking if I miss him. What are you going to say? She typed something quickly and hit send before she could second-guess herself. I told him it's fine, that I miss him, that I hope his meetings are going well. Do you? Do I what? Miss him? No, but he doesn't need to know that yet. Her phone buzzed again almost immediately. She read the message and her jaw tightened. He says he'll be home tomorrow night, earlier than planned. Says he wants to take me to dinner. Make up for being gone so much lately. You going to go? I don't know. Maybe. If I say no, he'll get suspicious. He'll know something's wrong. She put the phone away and rubbed her temples like she was fighting off a headache. I'm so tired of pretending, so tired of smiling and acting like everything's fine when it's all falling apart. Then stop. I can't. Not yet. You will, Ethan said. When you're ready, when you have everything in place, and until then, you do what you need to do to protect yourself. She looked at him, something unreadable in her expression, something that looked like gratitude mixed with exhaustion, and a hint of something else he couldn't quite identify. You're a good man, Ethan Cole. I'm just doing what anyone should do. No, you're not. Most people would have walked away by now, would have decided this wasn't their problem and gone back to their own lives. But you didn't. Ethan didn't have a response to that. Didn't know how to explain that walking away had never really been an option. That once he'd seen her standing in her kitchen with that broken glass and that look of devastation, something in him had made a decision without consulting his brain. The school bus pulled up at the end of the street, and Jamie came bounding down the sidewalk, backpack bouncing on his shoulders, face lit up with the kind of joy only kids could manage. He saw Lena and waved enthusiastically. Hi, Miss Lena. She smiled, and it was the first real smile Ethan had seen from her all day. Hi, Jamie. How was school? Good. We learned about frogs today. Did you know some frogs can jump 20 times their body length? That's like if I could jump from here all the way to that house. He pointed down the street at a house that was definitely more than 20 Jamie lengths away. I did not know that. That's amazing. Jamie dropped his backpack on the porch with a thud and looked at his dad. Can I have a snack? Yeah, buddy. Go wash your hands first. Jamie ran inside, screen door slamming behind him, and Lena stood up. I should go. Let you two have your evening. I've taken up enough of your time. You sure? Yeah, I need to think, plan, figure out my next steps. She hesitated, then reached out and squeezed his hand. Just for a second, but it was enough. Thank you for everything, for listening, for helping, for not making me feel crazy. Anytime. She walked back across the lawn to her house, and Ethan watched her go. She looked smaller somehow, more fragile than before. But there was something else there too, something in the set of her shoulders and the way she held her head up, something stronger than it had been this morning. Jamie came back outside with a juice box and a bag of crackers, plopping down on the porch steps. Is Miss Lena okay? She seems sad. She's going through some stuff, buddy, but she'll be okay. Are you helping her? Yeah, I am. Jamie nodded seriously, like this was important information. That's good. You're good at helping people. Ethan ruffled his son's hair. Thanks, kiddo. Is she going to come over more? I like when she's here. I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. I hope so. She's nice. That night, after Jamie was asleep, Ethan sat on the couch with his laptop and started looking up divorce attorneys. He made a list of names, offices that were far enough from Marcus's firm that there'd be no overlap, no chance of conflict of interest. Places that specialized in complex divorces, in cases where one party had significantly more resources than the other. He read reviews, checked credentials, narrowed it down to 5 solid options. He sent the list to Lena with a simple message. Here are some options. All of them are good. All of them have experience with cases like yours. Let me know if you need help with anything else. She replied 10 minutes later. I called one. Patricia Vaughn. I have a consultation tomorrow at noon. Can you come with me? I don't think I can do this without you. Ethan stared at the message. He had work tomorrow. He'd have to call in, make up an excuse, probably lose a day's pay he couldn't really afford to lose, but he didn't hesitate. Yeah, I'll be there. Thank you. I don't know what I did to deserve this kind of help, but thank you. You don't have to deserve help. You just have to need it. The next morning, Ethan dropped Jamie at school with an extra long hug and met Lena outside Patricia Vaughn's office at 11:45. She was wearing jeans and a blazer, hair pulled back in a neat ponytail, minimal makeup. She looked nervous, fidgeting with her purse strap, shifting her weight from one foot to the other. "You ready?" he asked. "No, but I'm doing it anyway." The law office was on the third floor of a downtown building, all glass and steel and modern furniture that looked uncomfortable but expensive. Patricia Vaughn was a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes, cropped gray hair, and a no-nonsense demeanor that put Ethan at ease immediately. She had the look of someone who'd seen everything and wasn't easily shocked. She listened as Lena explained everything: the affair, the money, the lies, the separate email accounts, the hotel encounters. She didn't interrupt, didn't judge, didn't gasp or express outrage. Just took notes in neat handwriting and asked clarifying questions when needed. When Lena finished, Patricia set down her pen and looked at her directly, unflinching. "You have a strong case," she said. "Adultery, financial misconduct, emotional abandonment. If you want to pursue this, I can help you, but I need to know right now, are you absolutely sure this is what you want? Because once we start this process, there's no going back. Your husband is going to fight back, and it's not going to be pretty. It's going to get messy and painful and expensive." "Yes," Lena said without hesitation. "I'm sure. I want out. I want my life back." "Good. Because if you had any doubts, this wouldn't work. Divorce is war, especially when there's money and infidelity involved. And you need to be prepared for that. I'm prepared. I just want this to be over." Patricia nodded approvingly. "Then let's get started." They spent the next 2.5 hours going over documents, signing paperwork, building a strategy. Patricia explained the process, the timeline, what to expect at each stage. She talked about asset division, spousal support, evidence gathering. She was thorough and precise, leaving no stone unturned. Ethan sat quietly in the corner, there for moral support, but staying out of the way. Watching Lena transform from terrified to determined was something to witness. By the time they left, she looked exhausted but relieved, like she'd finally taken action after months of paralysis. "I did it," she said as they walked to the car. "I actually did it. I hired a divorce lawyer." "Yeah, you did. I feel like I'm going to throw up." "That's normal." She laughed weakly. "Is it?" "Yeah, when I filed for divorce, I spent the whole day thinking I'd made a mistake, wondering if I should have tried harder, given her another chance, done something differently. But I hadn't made a mistake, and you haven't either." She stopped walking and turned to him. "What if I'm not strong enough to see this through? What if Marcus fights me and I crumble? What if I can't handle it?" "You are strong enough. You're already handling it." "How do you know?" "Because you're still standing. That's all the proof you need." Marcus came home that evening just like he said he would. Ethan watched from his kitchen window as the sedan pulled into the driveway. As Marcus got out with flowers in hand, yellow roses that had probably cost more than Ethan's grocery bill. As Lena opened the door and let him in, accepting the flowers with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, his phone buzzed an hour later. "He wants to take me to dinner, some expensive place downtown. Reservations at 8. I said yes. I have to keep pretending. You okay?" "No, but I will be. I just keep thinking about Patricia's advice. Document everything. Stay calm. Don't let him know what's coming. You can do this." "Can I?" "Because right now I want to scream at him. Tell him I know everything. Throw those flowers in his face and watch him try to explain his way out of it. But you won't. Because you're smarter than that. I hope you're right." Ethan didn't hear from her the rest of the night. He tried not to think about it, tried to focus on Jamie's bedtime routine and the pile of laundry he'd been avoiding and the bills that needed paying. But he kept glancing at his phone, waiting for an update that didn't come. It wasn't until almost midnight that she finally texted. "I can't do this anymore. I almost told him everything tonight. We were at dinner and he was holding my hand across the table, talking about planning a vacation together, and I almost broke. Almost told him I know about Rachel, about the hotels, about all of it. But you didn't, only because I kept thinking about what you said, that I'm stronger than I think, that I can handle this. You are, and you can. He told me he loves me tonight, at dinner, in front of everyone, made this big speech about how grateful he is to have me, how lucky he feels. And I just sat there smiling like an idiot while people at other tables looked at us like we were the perfect couple. You're not an idiot. You're surviving. It doesn't feel like surviving. It feels like drowning while everyone watches and thinks I'm swimming. Ethan stared at the screen, choosing his words carefully. Do you want to come over? Just to talk. Get out of that house for a bit. There was a long pause, then, yes, please. She showed up 10 minutes later, still in the dress she'd worn to dinner, mascara smudged under her eyes, hair falling out of the elegant updo she'd probably spent an hour on. Ethan let her in without a word, and she collapsed on the couch like all the energy had drained out of her. I hate him, she said quietly. I hate him so much, and I hate that I ever loved him. Hate that I wasted 5 years of my life on someone who was capable of this. Ethan sat down next to her, close but not touching. That's okay. You're allowed to hate him. Is it? Because it doesn't feel okay. It feels like I'm a terrible person for hating someone I promised to love forever. He broke that promise first. You're just responding to what he did. I keep thinking about the woman I used to be, before Marcus, before I gave up everything. I was confident, independent. I had goals and dreams and a plan for my life. And then I met him, and I thought he was the dream. Thought building a life together was what I wanted. And now I look back and I don't even recognize that woman anymore. I don't know where she went. She's still there. You just buried her for a while. But you'll find her again. She looked at him, tears streaming down her face, and he could see how hard she was fighting to hold herself together. How are you so calm about all this? How do you always know what to say? I'm not calm. I just got good at hiding it, and I don't always know what to say. I'm making it up as I go. Teach me how to do that. How to fake it until I make it. You don't need to fake anything. Not here, not with me. She broke then. Really broke. Sobbing into her hands, shoulders shaking, all the pain and anger and betrayal she'd been holding back pouring out of her in waves. Ethan didn't try to stop her. Didn't tell her it would be okay or offer empty platitudes. Just sat there, a steady presence, until the tears finally slowed and she could breathe again. Sorry, she said, wiping her face with the back of her hand. I'm a mess. A complete disaster. You're allowed to be. She laughed weakly through the tears. You keep saying that. Because it's true. You're going through something terrible. You're allowed to fall apart. That's not weakness. That's human. They sat in silence for a while, and then Lena said, Patricia called this afternoon, before dinner. Marcus's attorney already reached out. They want to negotiate a settlement. Ethan's eyebrows shot up. Already? He doesn't even know you filed yet. That's what I thought. But apparently his lawyer is proactive. Or Marcus is more paranoid than I gave him credit for. What did Patricia say? That they're going to try to lowball me. Offer me something small in exchange for keeping quiet about the affair. Make it seem generous while actually protecting Marcus's reputation and assets. Are you going to take it? Lena's expression hardened. Hell no. I'm going to fight. I'm going to make sure everyone knows what he did. I don't want his guilt money. I want what I'm owed. That's going to make this harder, longer. I know, but I don't care. He doesn't get to buy his way out of this. He doesn't get to make this go away quietly. Ethan nodded, feeling something like pride. Good. Don't let him. She leaned her head back against the couch, staring at the ceiling. When does this get easier? When do I wake up and not feel like my entire world is ending? I don't know. It's different for everyone. For me, it was probably 6 months before I started feeling normal again. Before I could get through a day without thinking about what I'd lost. 6 months, she repeated. That feels like forever. It'll go faster than you think. You'll have good days and bad days, and slowly, the good days will start to outnumber the bad ones. Promise? Yeah, I promise. She turned to look at him, and there was something in her eyes that made Ethan's heart skip. Something vulnerable and hopeful and scared all at once. Can I ask you something? Sure. That night when I kissed you, when I first stayed here, why did you stop me? Why did you tell me not until I was ready? Ethan took a breath, knowing this conversation had been coming eventually. Because you weren't ready. You were hurt and confused and looking for something to hold on to. And I didn't want to be that. Didn't want to be the rebound or the distraction or the thing you regretted later. What if I don't think I'd regret it? You would have. Maybe not right away, but eventually. Because you needed to figure out who you were without Marcus first. You needed to stand on your own 2 feet before you could stand next to someone else. And now? You're getting there, but you're not there yet. She looked disappointed, but not surprised. You're really not going to make this easy, are you? No, because I care about you, and I don't want to mess this up by rushing it. What if I'm okay with rushing? Then we wait anyway, because one of us needs to be smart about this. She smiled despite herself. Fine. But for the record, I think you're being stubborn. Probably. But I'd rather be stubborn than regretful. She didn't argue, just leaned against him, and he put his arm around her shoulders, and they sat there like that until she fell asleep. Ethan didn't move, didn't want to wake her. Just sat there thinking about choices and timing and how sometimes the hardest thing to do was the right thing. Ethan woke up the next morning with a crick in his neck from sleeping sitting up on the couch. Lena was still asleep against his shoulder, her breathing slow and even. The tear tracks on her face dried into faint lines. He checked his phone carefully, trying not to disturb her. 6:15. Jamie would be up in 20 minutes asking for breakfast and wondering why Miss Lena was sleeping on their couch. He eased himself out from under her, replacing his shoulder with a pillow, and she stirred but didn't wake. He covered her with the blanket from the back of the couch and went to the kitchen to make coffee. The morning was quiet, that particular stillness that comes just before a neighborhood wakes up. He could hear birds starting their songs, could see the first hints of dawn turning the sky from black to deep blue. By the time Lena appeared in the doorway, looking rumpled and disoriented, he had eggs scrambling on the stove and toast in the toaster. What time is it? She asked, voice rough from sleep. Almost 7. You want coffee? Please. She sat down at the kitchen table, running her hands through her hair. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to fall asleep here. It's fine, you needed it. Marcus is probably wondering where I am. Did he text? She checked her phone and her expression darkened. 12 times, getting progressively angrier. The last one says if I'm not home in an hour, he's calling the police to report me missing. What are you going to tell him? The truth. That I couldn't sleep and went for a drive. That I needed to clear my head. He doesn't get to know everything about my life anymore. She typed out a quick message and set the phone face down on the table. Patricia said the settlement offer is coming this afternoon. She wants to meet with me to go over it before we respond. What do you think they'll offer? Not enough. They never do. She accepted the coffee mug he handed her and wrapped her hands around it like she was trying to absorb its warmth. I'm scared, Ethan. Not of leaving him. I'm scared of what comes after. I don't have a job. I don't have my own money. Everything's in both our names or just his. What if he freezes the accounts? What if he tries to cut me off completely? That's what Patricia's for. She'll make sure he can't do that. But what if he does anyway? What if he finds some loophole and I'm left with nothing? Ethan sat down across from her. Then you start over. You rebuild. Same as anyone else who's been through this. Starting over sounds exhausting. It is, but it's better than staying in something that's killing you slowly. Jamie padded into the kitchen then, rubbing sleep from his eyes, stopping short when he saw Lena. Miss Lena, did you have a sleepover? She smiled despite everything. Sort of, buddy. I came over late and fell asleep on the couch. Cool. Are you staying for breakfast? If that's okay. It's always okay. Right, Dad? Right. They ate together, Jamie chattering about a project he was working on at school, something involving paper mache and way too much glue, and for a few minutes, the weight of everything else faded into the background. This was what normal felt like. What life could look like without the constant tension, the walking on eggshells, the pretending. After breakfast, Ethan drove Jamie to school and Lena went home to change clothes before her meeting with Patricia. When he got back to his house, he found himself looking over at the Hart place more than usual, watching for signs of Marcus. The sedan was still in the driveway, which meant he hadn't gone to work yet, probably interrogating Lena about where she'd been, what she'd been doing, who she'd been with. His phone buzzed around 10. He knows something's wrong. He kept asking questions, trying to trip me up. I told him I went for a drive and got coffee and sat in a parking lot thinking. He doesn't believe me. What did he say? That I've been acting strange lately, distant, that he's worried about me. The irony is almost funny. Be careful. Don't give him ammunition. I won't. Meeting with Patricia at noon. I'll let you know how it goes. Ethan spent the morning doing yard work he'd been putting off, mowing the lawn and trimming hedges, trying to keep his hands busy and his mind from spinning out. He kept checking his phone, waiting for updates. Around 1:30, Lena finally called. It's bad, she said without preamble. The settlement offer. It's worse than I thought. How bad? $50,000 and the car. That's it. No alimony, no split of assets. He's claiming I abandoned the marriage and therefore forfeit my claim to joint property. Ethan felt his jaw tighten. Can he do that? He's going to try. Patricia says it's a scare tactic. They're hoping I'll panic and take whatever they offer because I'm afraid of getting nothing. But we have evidence that proves otherwise. The adultery, the financial misconduct, all of it. A judge will see through this. So what now? Now we reject the offer and prepare for court. Patricia says it could take months, maybe longer. And it's going to cost money I don't really have. Her voice cracked slightly. I'm running out of options, Ethan. What do you need? I don't know. A job, income, something that doesn't make me dependent on Marcus or Charity. Then we'll find you a job. It's not that simple. I've been out of the workforce for 3 years. My resume has a giant gap. And even if someone hires me, it won't be enough to pay Patricia's fees and rent and everything else. One thing at a time. First, we reject the settlement. Then we figure out the rest. She was quiet for a moment. Okay, yeah, one thing at a time. That evening, Patricia filed the formal rejection of Marcus's settlement offer. His response came within hours, not through lawyers, but directly. He showed up at Ethan's door at 8:30, tie loosened, face flushed with anger. Where is she? Marcus demanded when Ethan opened the door. Who? Don't play games with me. Lena, I know she's been coming here. I know you're involved in this somehow. Ethan crossed his arms, blocking the doorway. She's not here. Bullshit. Her car's in the driveway, but she's not home. Where else would she be? That's not my business or yours. Marcus stepped closer, trying to intimidate with his presence. He was taller than Ethan by a few inches, broader in the shoulders from expensive gym memberships and personal trainers. You need to stay out of my marriage. This has nothing to do with you. Then why are you at my door? Because you're poisoning her against me, filling her head with ideas about divorce and independence. She was fine until you started interfering. Ethan almost laughed. She wasn't fine. She was miserable. You just didn't notice because you were too busy screwing Rachel. Marcus's face went white, then red. What did you just say? You heard me. We know about Rachel, the hotels, the money, all of it. You don't know anything. We know enough, and soon a judge will too. Marcus jabbed a finger at Ethan's chest. You're making a mistake. You think you're helping her, but you're not. You're just some divorced loser who can't mind his own business. Ethan didn't flinch. Get off my porch. Or what? Or I call the police and tell them you're harassing me. Your choice. They stared at each other for a long moment, tension crackling in the air between them. Finally, Marcus backed down, but not before getting in a parting shot. This isn't over. Tell Lena if she thinks she's getting half of anything, she's delusional. I'll burn every penny before I let her take it. He stormed off, and Ethan watched him get in his car and peel out of the driveway, tires squealing. His hands were shaking slightly from the adrenaline, but he felt oddly calm. He'd stood his ground. Hadn't let Marcus intimidate him or make him doubt what they were doing. His phone rang a minute later. Lena, are you okay? I just got home and saw Marcus leaving your place. He looked furious. I'm fine. He wanted to know where you were. What did you tell him? That it wasn't my business or his. She laughed, but it was strained. How did he take that? Not well. He made some threats about the settlement, said he'd burn the money before letting you have it. Sounds like him. All or nothing. Control or destruction. There's no middle ground with Marcus. She paused. Thank you for not telling him I was at Patricia's office. For protecting me. You don't need to thank me. I know, but I'm going to anyway. The next few days settled into a tense routine. Lena stayed at the Hart House, maintaining the illusion of normalcy, while secretly preparing to leave. She'd come over to Ethan's place in the evenings after Marcus went to bed, and they'd sit on the porch talking about next steps, about strategy, about anything except the elephant in the room, which was the growing connection between them that neither was quite ready to acknowledge. On Thursday, Patricia called with news. Marcus's attorney filed a countersuit, she told Lena over speakerphone while she sat in Ethan's kitchen. He's claiming you were unfaithful first, that you've been having an affair with your neighbor, and that's the real reason the marriage failed. Lena's face went pale. That's insane. I never cheated. Not once. Not ever. I know, but he's going to try to make you look bad. Paint you as unstable, vindictive, someone who abandoned the marriage for another man. We need to be prepared for this. How do we fight it? Character witnesses, people who can vouch for you, and we need to prove his affair was ongoing and predated any contact you had with Mr. Cole. When did you first meet? A couple months ago, maybe 2.5. Marcus borrowed him a screwdriver. And when did you start suspecting your husband's affair? 6 months ago, maybe longer. It's hard to pinpoint exactly when. Patricia made notes. Good. We can establish a timeline. Show that you were already experiencing marital problems long before you met your neighbor, that you sought emotional support from a friend after discovering your husband's infidelity, not before. After the call ended, Lena sat staring at nothing, processing. He's going to drag your name through the mud too, she said to Ethan. I'm sorry. You didn't sign up for this. I knew what I was getting into. Did you? Because this is getting uglier than I thought possible. Lena, I'm not going anywhere. He can say whatever he wants. Doesn't make it true. She looked at him with something that might have been love or gratitude or desperation, maybe all three at once. I don't deserve you. Stop saying stuff like that. You deserve someone who shows up. That's baseline human decency, not some extraordinary virtue. It feels extraordinary to me. The following Monday, Lena started job hunting in earnest. She updated her resume, highlighting the work she'd done before giving up her career, and started applying to marketing positions across the city. Most places didn't call back. A few sent automated rejections. But one small firm downtown, a boutique agency that specialized in local businesses, asked her to come in for an interview. She showed up at Ethan's door the morning of the interview, nerves written all over her face. Do I look okay? Professional enough? Not too desperate? She was wearing a navy blue suit that probably cost more than Ethan's monthly rent, hair styled in a way that said competent professional, makeup subtle but polished. You look great. You're going to do fine. What if they ask about the gap in my employment? What do I say? The truth. You took time off to support your spouse's career. That's not unusual. What if they ask why I'm looking now? You tell them you're ready to get back into the workforce. You don't owe them your whole life story. She took a deep breath. Okay, yeah, I can do this. You can. She came back 2 hours later, cautiously optimistic. I think it went well. They seemed interested, asked good questions, seemed impressed with my previous work. See? Told you. They said they'd let me know by the end of the week. The call came 3 days later. They wanted to hire her. The pay wasn't spectacular, but it was steady income, and it came with benefits. Lena accepted on the spot, and when she told Ethan that evening, she looked lighter than she had in weeks. I got the job. I actually got it. That's great. Really great. I start Monday. It's real. I'm going to have my own money again. My own purpose beyond being someone's wife. Jamie, who'd been listening from the living room, ran over and hugged her. That's so cool, Miss Lena. What do you do? About this. I help companies figure out how to talk to customers, make their messages clear and interesting. Like commercials? Sometimes, yeah. That's awesome. That night, after Jamie was asleep, Lena and Ethan sat on the porch celebrating with cheap beer and the Chinese takeout Ethan had grabbed on the way home from work. This feels like the first good thing that's happened in forever, Lena said, picking at her lo mein. It's the first of many. You sound so sure. That's because I am. You're taking control of your life. That's huge. She set down her fork and looked at him. Can I ask you something? Always. Why haven't you dated anyone since your divorce, I mean? It's been, what, 2 years? Ethan shrugged. Honestly, I haven't had the energy. Between work and Jamie and just trying to keep my head above water, dating felt like one more thing I didn't have the bandwidth for. Do you ever get lonely? Sometimes. But lonely's better than being with the wrong person. Is it though? I used to think that. Now I'm not sure. You're just scared of being alone. That's different from actually preferring bad company. She was quiet for a moment. What if I told you I don't want to be alone anymore? That I'm tired of keeping everyone at arm's length? Ethan met her eyes. I'd say you're getting there, but you're not there yet. How do you know? Because you're still in the middle of this. Your divorce isn't final. You don't even have your own place. You need to finish what you started before you can start something new. She looked disappointed but resigned. You're probably right. I know I am. But hypothetically, when this is all over, when I'm divorced and settled and standing on my own 2 feet, then what? Then we'll see. That's not a very satisfying answer. It's an honest one. She smiled despite herself. Fine, I'll wait. But I'm not going to like it. Good things are worth waiting for. Is that what this is? A good thing? I think it could be, if we don't rush it. Patricia called the next afternoon with a court date, 6 weeks out. She warned Lena it wouldn't be easy, that Marcus's lawyer was going to come at her hard, trying to discredit her character, paint her as an unfaithful wife who abandoned her marriage for a neighbor. But we have evidence, Patricia reminded her. We have timeline documentation. We have the emails from Rachel. We have credit card statements showing his affair started months before you even met Mr. Cole. We have a solid case. What if it's not enough? Then we appeal. But I don't think it'll come to that. Judges see through this kind of nonsense all the time. Lena started her new job the following Monday. The first few days were overwhelming, learning systems and meeting coworkers and trying to remember everyone's names. But by the end of the week, she'd found her rhythm. Her boss seemed pleased with her work, her colleagues were friendly, and for the first time in years, Lena felt like she was building something that belonged to her. She'd come home exhausted but energized, stopping by Ethan's place most evenings to decompress and tell him about her day. He liked listening to her talk about projects and clients and office politics. Liked seeing her come back to life piece by piece. Marcus, meanwhile, grew increasingly hostile. He'd leave for work early and come home late, barely speaking to Lena when their paths crossed. She suspected he was staying with Rachel, but she didn't ask, didn't care. She was focused on getting through the next 6 weeks until the court date, until she could finally be free. 2 weeks before the hearing, Marcus made one final attempt to settle. His lawyer called Patricia with a revised offer. $150,000, the car, and he'd cover half her legal fees. In exchange, Lena would sign a non-disclosure agreement, preventing her from discussing the reasons for the divorce publicly. It's still lowball, Patricia said when she called to discuss it. But it's more than the first offer. He's getting nervous, realizing we're not backing down. What do you think I should do? That's your decision. If you take it, you get money now, you avoid court, and this ends quickly. But you give up the chance at a fair asset split, and you can't talk about what happened. What's fair? Fair is probably closer to $300,000 plus spousal support for at least 3 years, given the length of the marriage and your sacrificed career. But fair means going to court and fighting for it. Lena didn't hesitate. I want to fight. I want him to face what he did in front of a judge. I don't want his hush money. You're sure, because once we reject this, there's no going back. I'm sure. When Ethan asked her about it that night, she explained her reasoning. It's not about the money, she said. It's about not letting him control the narrative. He wants to pay me off, make this go away quietly, and move on like nothing happened. I won't give him that satisfaction. It's going to be brutal. You know that, right? In court, they're going to ask you things you don't want to answer, make you relive everything. I know, but I'll survive it, same as I've survived everything else. The night before the court date, Lena couldn't sleep. She kept running through everything in her head, every piece of evidence, every argument Patricia had prepared. She was terrified Marcus's lawyer would find some way to twist things, to make her look like the villain in her own story. She texted Ethan around 2 in the morning. Are you awake? Yeah, can't sleep either. What if I lose tomorrow? What if the judge believes Marcus? You won't lose. You have the truth on your side. The truth doesn't always win. It does more often than you think. And even if the worst happens, you'll appeal. You'll keep fighting. You don't quit. That's not who you are. How do you know who I am? We've only known each other a few months, because I've seen you at your worst and you're still standing. That tells me everything I need to know. She didn't respond for a few minutes, and he thought maybe she'd fallen asleep. Then his phone buzzed again. Thank you for everything, for being there when I had nobody else, for not judging me, for believing in me when I couldn't believe in myself. You don't have to thank me. I'm just glad I could help. When this is over, I want to take you to dinner, a real dinner, not takeout on your porch, somewhere nice. We'll see. You always say that, because I mean it. One thing at a time. First, we get through tomorrow. Okay, one thing at a time. The courthouse was downtown, an imposing building of gray stone and tall columns that was meant to inspire confidence in the justice system, but mostly just felt intimidating. Lena wore a conservative gray dress, hair pulled back, minimal jewelry. She looked professional and put together, even though Ethan knew she'd barely slept. Patricia met them outside, briefcase in hand, looking every inch the warrior attorney. Ready? She asked Lena. As I'll ever be. Remember, stay calm. Answer questions directly. Don't volunteer information they don't ask for. And no matter what Marcus's lawyer says, don't let them rattle you. They walked inside together, through security, up to the third floor where family court was held. Marcus was already there, sitting with his lawyer, a sharp-looking man in an expensive suit who radiated aggressive competence. When Marcus saw Lena, his expression didn't change, just looked at her like she was a stranger, someone he'd never promised to love and cherish. The hearing lasted 3.5 hours. Marcus's lawyer painted Lena as unstable, irrational, someone who'd abandoned her marriage over paranoid suspicions. He suggested her relationship with Ethan had begun long before she claimed that she'd manufactured evidence of Marcus's affair to justify her own infidelity. Patricia tore him apart systematically. She presented the emails from Rachel, dated and time-stamped, showing the affair had been ongoing for at least 8 months. She presented credit card statements showing hotel stays and expensive dinners in cities Marcus had never mentioned visiting. She presented testimony from the process server who'd caught Marcus at the hotel with Rachel. And through it all, Lena sat there, hands folded in her lap, refusing to look away, refusing to let Marcus or his lawyer or anyone else make her feel ashamed for wanting the truth. When it was Lena's turn to testify, she spoke clearly and calmly, answering every question without embellishment. Yes, she'd met her neighbor a few months ago. No, there was no romantic relationship until after she'd discovered her husband's affair. Yes, she'd sought emotional support from a friend during a difficult time. No, she hadn't abandoned the marriage. She'd tried to save it while her husband was actively betraying her trust. Marcus's lawyer tried to twist her words, tried to make her slip up, but Patricia had prepared her well. She didn't take the bait. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the judge called for a recess to deliberate. They waited in the hallway, Lena pacing back and forth, Ethan standing against the wall watching her. How do you think it went? She asked Patricia. I think we made our case. The judge seemed attentive to the evidence, but you never know until you know. 25 minutes later, they were called back in. The judge, a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and a no-nonsense expression, looked at both parties. Based on the evidence presented, she said, her voice carrying through the courtroom, I find that Mr. Hart engaged in an extramarital affair that substantially contributed to the breakdown of this marriage. I find Mrs. Hart's testimony credible and supported by documentation. The marriage will be dissolved and assets will be divided equitably. Mr. Hart, you will pay spousal support in the amount of $4,000 per month for a period of 3 years. You will also cover all legal fees incurred by Mrs. Hart in this proceeding. This court is adjourned. The gavel came down and Lena felt like all the air left her lungs at once. She'd won. Patricia squeezed her hand under the table. You did it. Lena couldn't speak, could only nod, tears streaming down her face. These weren't tears of sadness or even relief. They were tears of vindication, of being believed, of having the truth validated by someone in authority. When they walked out of the courthouse, Ethan was waiting. He took one look at her face and smiled. "You won." "Yes, she said, voice breaking. "I won." And then she started crying in earnest, not caring who saw, not caring about anything except the fact that it was finally, truly over. Ethan pulled her into a hug, and she clung to him like he was the only solid thing in the world. "It's over," she whispered against his shoulder. "Yeah, it is." They stood there on the courthouse steps while people flowed around them, while life continued at its normal pace. And Lena let herself feel everything she'd been holding back for months. The fear, the anger, the grief, the relief. All of it pouring out of her at once. When she finally pulled back, wiping her eyes, Patricia was smiling. "Congratulations, Mrs. Hart. Or should I say, Ms. Hart. You're officially getting your life back. Thank you for everything, for fighting for me. That's what I do. Now go celebrate. You've earned it." Lena turned to Ethan. "Can we just go home? I don't want to celebrate. I just want to sit on your porch and breathe." "Yeah, we can do that." They drove back in comfortable silence, and when they got to his house, they did exactly what she'd asked. Sat on the porch, drinking water because neither of them wanted alcohol, just watching the neighborhood go about its day. Kids playing in yards, dogs being walked, normal life happening all around them. "What happens now?" Ethan asked after a while. "Now I figure out what comes next. Find my own place. Start building a life that's actually mine. You don't have to rush. I know, but I want to. I want to prove to myself I can do it." He nodded, understanding. "When do you want to tell Jamie about everything?" "Soon. He deserves to know why things are changing, why I might not be around as much. He's going to miss you. I'm going to miss him too, miss both of you." She looked at Ethan. "But this isn't goodbye. You know that, right?" "I know." "Good, because I still owe you that dinner, once I'm settled and sane and not an emotional disaster. Looking forward to it." They sat there until the sun started to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, and Lena thought about endings and beginnings and how sometimes they were the same thing. The settlement money came through 3 weeks later, deposited into a new bank account Lena had opened in her name only. She stared at the balance on her phone, still not quite believing it was real. $285,000 after legal fees. Not the full amount the judge had ordered. Marcus had somehow managed to argue down some of the asset division through his lawyers, but it was enough. More than enough to start over. She called Ethan from her car in the bank parking lot. "It's there. The money. It actually came through. That's great. What are you going to do with it?" "First, I'm going to find an apartment. Something small but mine. Then I'm going to buy actual furniture instead of living like I'm camping in my own life." She paused. "And I'm going to take you and Jamie to dinner. Somewhere nice. My treat. You don't have to do that. I want to. You've done so much for me, Ethan. Let me do this one thing." He didn't argue further. "Okay, when?" "This weekend? Saturday night?" "Saturday works, so..." Lena spent the rest of the week apartment hunting. She looked at a dozen places, most of them disappointing in various ways. Too expensive, too small, too far from work, too close to where Marcus lived. But on Friday afternoon, she found a one-bedroom on the east side of town that felt right. It wasn't fancy. The building was older, the appliances outdated, but it had good light and hardwood floors and a balcony that overlooked a small park. The rent was reasonable, and the landlord didn't ask too many questions about her employment gap. She signed the lease that afternoon and called Ethan from the empty apartment. "I did it. I got my own place." "How's it feel?" She looked around at the bare walls and worn countertops. Terrifying and perfect. "When do you move in?" "Next week. I don't have much to move. Most of the stuff at the Hart House was Marcus's or ours together, and I don't want any of it. I'm starting fresh." "Good for you." "Will you help me? Moving day? I know it's a lot to ask, but of course. Just tell me when." Saturday night, Lena picked them up at 6:30. She'd made reservations at an Italian place downtown that had been on her list for years. One of those restaurants Marcus had always said was too expensive, or too trendy, or not worth the wait. She wore a blue dress she'd bought specifically for this occasion, the first new clothing she'd purchased in months that wasn't for work. Jamie was thrilled about the whole thing, dressed in khakis and a button-down shirt that Ethan had clearly wrestled him into. "We never go to fancy restaurants. This is so cool." Lena smiled at him. "Well, tonight's special. We're celebrating." "Celebrating what?" "New beginnings." The restaurant was everything she'd hoped for. Warm lighting, white tablecloths, the kind of atmosphere that made you feel like you were somewhere important. They ordered too much food, and Jamie tried calamari for the first time, making faces that had both adults laughing. For a couple hours, everything else faded away. There was no divorce, no custody arrangements, no lingering pain from the past few months. Just three people enjoying a meal together. "This is really nice, like it," Ethan said when Jamie excused himself to go to the bathroom. "Thank you. I should be thanking you for everything you've done. I literally wouldn't have survived this without you." "You would have. You're stronger than you think." "Maybe, but I'm glad I didn't have to prove it alone." She reached across the table and took his hand. "I know you said to wait, to make sure I was ready, but I think I am now. Ready, I mean." Ethan's expression was unreadable. "Lena, I have my own place, my own job, my own money. I'm not dependent on anyone. I've done the work you said I needed to do, so what are we waiting for? Are you sure this is what you want? Not just what you think you should want because I've been here through all of this?" "I'm sure. I've been sure for a while now. I just needed to get to a place where I could say it without feeling like I was using you as a life raft." Jamie came bounding back to the table before Ethan could respond, chattering about the fancy soap in the bathroom and the paintings on the walls. The moment passed, but something had shifted. An understanding had been reached, even if they hadn't finished the conversation. When Ethan dropped Lena off at the Hart House later that night, Marcus's car wasn't in the driveway. He'd been staying elsewhere most nights now, probably with Rachel, only coming home to collect mail and grab clothes. The house felt like a ghost town, a place where a life used to exist but didn't anymore. "You want me to walk you in?" Ethan asked. "No, I'm okay. He's not here anyway." She unbuckled her seatbelt but didn't get out immediately. "Thank you for tonight, for coming with me, for always showing up. Stop thanking me." "Never." She leaned over and kissed his cheek, letting it linger just long enough to be meaningful. "Good night, Ethan." "Good night." She watched him drive away, then went inside to start packing. She didn't have much she wanted to take. Some clothes, a few books, photographs from before her marriage that reminded her of who she used to be. Most of the furniture, the expensive kitchen gadgets, the artwork Marcus had insisted on buying, she left behind. None of it felt like hers anyway. It all belonged to a version of herself that didn't exist anymore. Moving day was the following Saturday. Ethan showed up at 8 in the morning with his truck and a willingness to carry heavy boxes. Lena had been packing all week, and most of her belongings fit into a dozen boxes and 3 suitcases. It was depressing and liberating in equal measure. "That's it?" Ethan asked, looking at the small pile in the living room. "That's it. Turns out I didn't accumulate much worth keeping in 5 years of marriage. You're keeping the important stuff, yourself. When did you become so wise? I've always been wise. You just didn't notice." They loaded everything into the truck, and Lena took one last walk through the Hart House. She stood in each room, saying a silent goodbye to the life she'd thought she was building here. The kitchen where she'd cooked countless dinners that Marcus barely touched. The living room where they'd hosted parties and pretended to be happy. The bedroom where she'd spent so many nights lying awake wondering what had gone wrong. "You ready?" Ethan called from the front door. "Yeah, I'm ready." She locked the door behind her and left the key on the kitchen counter. Marcus could deal with the house, the furniture, all of it. She was taking what mattered and leaving everything else behind. The new apartment looked less empty with her boxes in it. Ethan helped her carry everything up 2 flights of stairs, making multiple trips while Lena directed where things should go. Jamie came along too, excited about the new place, already planning where Lena should put a TV and suggesting she needed a better couch. "This one's really flat," he said, bouncing on the secondhand love seat Lena had bought off Craigslist. "I know. I'll get a better one eventually." "You should get one of those big comfy ones, like at Dad's house." Ethan laughed. "That couch is older than you, buddy. Not exactly a recommendation." By early afternoon, everything was unpacked and arranged in some semblance of order. The apartment was still sparse, still had the lived-in quality that only comes with time, but it was starting to feel like home. Lena ordered pizza for lunch, and they ate sitting on the floor of her living room because she didn't have a dining table yet. "I like it here," Jamie announced through a mouthful of pepperoni. "It feels cozy." "Cozy is just another word for small," Lena teased. "No, it's different. Small is bad. Cozy is good." "He's got a point," Ethan added. After they finished eating, Jamie asked if he could watch something on Lena's laptop, and she set him up with a cartoon in the bedroom. That left her and Ethan alone in the living room, sitting on the floor with their backs against the wall, surveying her new life. "Thank you for helping today, she said. "I couldn't have done this without you." "You could have. You just would have had to make more trips." "You know what I mean." He did. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, and then Lena said, "I've been thinking about what you said, about waiting until I was ready, and I think you were right. A few months ago, I wasn't in a place to start something new. I was still too wrapped up in what I'd lost, too angry, too broken. But I feel different now." "Different how?" "Like I'm not running from something, like I'm actually moving toward something I want, not just away from something I hate." She turned to look at him. "I want to try this. Us, if you still want that." Ethan met her eyes, and she could see him weighing it, considering all the angles. He was careful like that, always thinking 3 steps ahead. "What about Jamie? He's already attached to you. If this doesn't work out, then we handle it like adults. We don't disappear from each other's lives. We figure it out." She paused. "But I don't think it won't work out. Do you?" "No, I don't." He reached over and took her hand. "Okay, let's try it." "Yeah?" "Yeah." She kissed him then, properly this time, not the tentative kiss from months ago, but something real and full of promise. When they pulled apart, both of them were smiling. "So what now?" she asked. "Now we take it slow. We don't rush. We let this develop naturally." "Define slow." "I don't know. We go on actual dates. We spend time together that isn't about legal strategy or emotional crisis management. We see what we're like when we're not in survival mode." "I can do slow." "Good, because I'm too old to rush into things and screw them up." Jamie emerged from the bedroom a few minutes later, oblivious to what had just transpired. "Can we go to the park? I saw one from the window and it has swings." Lena looked at Ethan, who shrugged. "Your call. It's your apartment, your neighborhood. Yeah, let's go to the park." They spent the rest of the afternoon at the small playground across the street, Jamie running between the swings and the slide, while Ethan and Lena sat on a bench watching him. It was domestic and easy and normal in a way Lena hadn't experienced in years. No tension, no walking on eggshells, no pretending to be someone she wasn't, just existing in the moment. "This is nice," she said eventually. "It is. I could get used to this." "That's the plan." Over the next few weeks, they fell into a new routine. Lena would have dinner with Ethan and Jamie a couple times a week, sometimes at their place, sometimes at hers. On weekends, they'd do things together. Museums, movies, trips to the park. Jamie started calling it their family time, which made Lena's heart swell and terrified her in equal measure. Her job was going well. She'd impressed her boss with a campaign for a local bakery that had increased their foot traffic by 30%. They'd given her more responsibility, more autonomy, and her confidence grew with each successful project. She was remembering who she used to be before Marcus, the woman who'd been good at her job and proud of her work. One evening, about 6 weeks after moving into her apartment, Lena's coworker Claire invited her out for drinks after work. "You've been here 2 months and I still barely know you," Claire said. "Come on, 1 drink, tell me your story." Lena agreed, partially because Claire seemed genuinely nice, and partially because she realized she hadn't made any new friends since the divorce. They went to a wine bar near the office, got a bottle to share, and Claire asked the inevitable question. "So what's your deal? Married? Single? Divorced?" Recently divorced, actually. Just finalized a few months ago." "How recently?" "Recently enough that I'm still figuring out who I am without him." Claire nodded sympathetically. "I've been there. Divorced 3 years ago. Messy custody battle, the whole 9 yards. It gets easier, I promise. Everyone keeps saying that because it's true. The first year's hell. The second year's less hell. By the third year, you'll wonder why you stayed as long as you did. They talked for 2 hours about work and life and the particular challenges of starting over in your 30s. Claire was funny and blunt and exactly the kind of friend Lena realized she needed. Someone who didn't know her as Marcus's wife, who didn't have preconceived notions about who she should be. "So are you dating anyone?" Claire asked as they finished their second glass. Lena hesitated. She and Ethan hadn't really defined what they were doing yet. They'd been on a few dates, spent time together as a family with Jamie, but they hadn't had the conversation about labels or what they were to each other. "Kind of," she said finally. "It's new. We're taking it slow." "Good for you. Slow is good. I jumped into something way too fast after my divorce, and it was a disaster. Learn from my mistakes." When Lena got home that night, she found a text from Ethan. "Jamie wants to know if you're coming over for dinner tomorrow. I'm making spaghetti," which is code for opening a jar of sauce, but he seems excited about it. She smiled and typed back, "I'd love to." "What time?" 6. "Come earlier if you want. Jamie's been working on a Lego set, and he wants to show you. I'll be there at 5. The next evening, she showed up with a bottle of wine and a box of cookies from the bakery she'd done the campaign for. Jamie met her at the door, pulling her by the hand to the living room, where an elaborate Lego castle was taking shape. "Look, I built the tower all by myself. Dad helped with the walls because they were tricky, but I did the tower." "That's amazing, buddy. You're really good at this." She spent 20 minutes admiring his work, helping him place tiny Lego knights in strategic positions before Ethan called them for dinner. The spaghetti was exactly as advertised, jarred sauce over boxed pasta, but it was warm and filling, and they ate together at the small kitchen table like they'd done it 1,000 times before. After dinner, after Jamie had gone to bed, Lena and Ethan sat on the back porch with the wine she'd brought. "I met someone from work today," she said. "Claire. We got drinks after the office closed." "Yeah? How was it?" "Good. Really good, actually. It felt normal. Like I was just a person making a friend, not a divorcee trying to rebuild her entire social circle." "That's great." She asked if I was dating anyone. Ethan glanced at her. "What did you say?" "I said kind of. That it was new and we were taking it slow." "Is that what we're doing? Dating?" "I don't know. What would you call it?" He thought about it. "I'd call it figuring it out as we go." "That's not very romantic." "No, but it's honest." She laughed. "Fair enough." She set down her wine glass and turned to face him. "Can I ask you something?" "Always." "Are you happy? Like, in general, with your life, with this, with us?" Ethan considered the question seriously. "Yeah, I am. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm not just surviving. I'm actually living." "Me too." She reached for his hand. "I don't need labels or definitions or anything official. I just need to know this is real, that it matters to you the way it matters to me. It's real, and it matters." He squeezed her hand. "You matter." They stayed there talking until late, about everything and nothing. And when Lena finally went home around 11, she felt lighter than she had in months. Like all the pieces of her life were finally starting to fit together in a way that made sense. The following week, Marcus's lawyer reached out one final time. The house had sold, and there were remaining assets to divide. Patricia handled most of it, but Lena had to sign off on the final paperwork. She met with Patricia on a Tuesday afternoon, reviewing documents that officially severed her last legal ties to Marcus Hart. "How do you feel?" Patricia asked when everything was signed. "Free?" Lena said without hesitation. "For the first time in 5 years, I feel completely free." "Good. You deserve it." Patricia slid the papers into a folder. "I'm going to file these today. By the end of the week, everything will be finalized. You'll receive your portion of the house sale within 30 days. And then it's really over." "Then it's really over." Lena called Ethan from her car. "I just signed the final papers. It's done. All of it. Marcus and I have no legal connection anymore." "How do you feel?" Like I can finally breathe. Like I spent 5 years holding my breath underwater and I finally came up for air. That's a good feeling. The best feeling. She paused. Can I see you tonight? I know it's a weeknight and Jamie has school tomorrow, but yeah, come over. We'll order takeout. She showed up an hour later with Thai food and a smile that wouldn't quit. Jamie was thrilled about the spring rolls, and they ate dinner together in the living room while some animated movie played in the background. Afterward, Jamie fell asleep on the couch, and Ethan carried him to bed while Lena cleaned up the containers. When he came back, she was standing in the kitchen looking at her phone. Everything okay? He asked. Yeah, Marcus texted. First time in weeks. He says congratulations on the divorce settlement and hopes I'm happy. That's surprisingly civil. I know, I don't trust it. She set the phone down. But I also don't care. He doesn't get to take up space in my head anymore. Ethan walked over and wrapped his arms around her from behind. Good. He doesn't deserve the real estate. She leaned back against him, closing her eyes. Thank you. For what? For being patient with me. For letting me figure things out at my own pace. For not pushing. That's what you do when you care about someone. You give them space to become who they need to be. She turned in his arms to face him. I love you. I don't know if it's too soon to say that, but I do. I love you. Ethan smiled, and it was the most genuine, unguarded expression she'd ever seen from him. I love you too. Have for a while now. Why didn't you say anything? Because you needed to get here on your own. Needed to know you were choosing this because you wanted it, not because you needed it. And now? Now I'm just glad you're here. They kissed, slow and deep, and for the first time it felt like a beginning instead of a distraction from an ending. When they pulled apart, Lena was smiling. So what now? She asked. Now we keep doing what we're doing, taking it one day at a time, building something real. I can do that. I know you can. That night, Lena drove home to her apartment, but instead of feeling lonely, she felt content. She had her own space, her own life, her own purpose. And she had Ethan and Jamie, not as a crutch or a replacement for what she'd lost, but as an addition to what she was building. She sat on her balcony with a cup of tea, looking out at the park across the street, and thought about how far she'd come. 6 months ago, she'd been standing in her kitchen with broken glass at her feet, watching her marriage implode. And now she was here, financially independent, emotionally stable, and genuinely happy. It hadn't been easy. There had been days when she'd wanted to give up, to take Marcus's settlement offer and run, to avoid the pain of fighting. But she'd pushed through. She'd done the hard work of standing up for herself, of demanding better, of refusing to accept less than she deserved. And it had been worth it. Every difficult conversation, every court appearance, every sleepless night. All of it had led her here, to this moment of peace. Her phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. Made it home okay? Yeah. Sitting on my balcony thinking about life. Deep thoughts? Good thoughts. Happy thoughts? Good. You deserve happy thoughts. So do you. I've got plenty of those lately. She smiled and set the phone down, finishing her tea while the night settled around her. Tomorrow she'd go to work, meet with clients, continue building her career. This weekend she'd see Ethan and Jamie, maybe take them to that new science museum Jamie had been talking about. Next month she'd start looking at nicer apartments, maybe something with 2 bedrooms and better appliances. But tonight, she was just going to sit here and be grateful. Grateful for second chances, for people who showed up when you needed them, for the strength to walk away from things that were killing you slowly. Life wasn't perfect. It probably never would be. But it was hers. Completely, utterly, wonderfully hers. And that was more than enough. 3 months later, Lena was standing in her apartment looking at paint samples when her phone rang. She almost didn't answer, caught up in the impossible decision between morning mist and silver sage for her bedroom walls. But something made her check the caller ID. Patricia Vaughn. Her heart skipped. The divorce was finalized, the assets divided, everything settled. There shouldn't be any reason for her lawyer to call unless something had gone wrong. Patricia, is everything okay? Everything's fine. Better than fine, actually. I have news. Marcus's portion of the house sale finally cleared, which means your final payment is being processed. You should see it in your account by end of business today. Lena sat down on her secondhand couch, paint samples forgotten. How much? $92,000. After the mortgage was paid off and expenses were deducted from the sale, your half comes to that. Combined with what you already have, you're looking at close to $400,000 in total assets from the divorce settlement. Lena couldn't speak for a moment. $400,000. Money she'd earned by surviving 5 years of a marriage that had slowly eroded her sense of self. Money that represented not just financial security, but freedom. True, complete freedom. Lena, you still there? Yeah, sorry, I'm just processing. I know it's a lot, but you earned every penny of it. You fought hard for this, and you won. I'm proud of you. Thank you for everything. I couldn't have done this without you. You're stronger than you think. You would have found a way. I just helped expedite the process. Patricia paused. What are you going to do with it? I don't know. Save most of it, probably. Maybe invest some. Actually have a safety net for the first time in my life. Smart. You've got a good head on your shoulders. Use it. After they hung up, Lena sat there staring at the wall, trying to absorb what this meant. She didn't have to worry about rent anymore. Didn't have to stress about unexpected car repairs or medical bills or any of the 1,000 small financial anxieties that had plagued her since leaving Marcus. She could breathe. Really breathe. She called Ethan immediately. Hey, what's up? The final settlement came through. I'm officially done with everything Marcus related. That's great. How do you feel? Rich, she said, and then laughed at the absurdity of it. I mean, not actually rich, but compared to where I was 6 months ago, it feels like I won the lottery. You deserve it, all of it. I know, that's the weird part. For the first time, I actually believe that. She looked around her small apartment, at the furniture she'd bought herself, the walls she was about to paint, the life she was building piece by piece. Can I take you to dinner tonight, somewhere really nice, to celebrate? You don't have to do that. I want to. I want to celebrate with you. You're a huge part of why I made it through this. What about Jamie? Can your neighbor watch him for a few hours? Probably. Let me check. She heard him talking to someone in the background. Then he came back. She can do it. What time? 7? I'll pick you up. Lena, I can drive. Nope. Tonight, I'm taking you out properly. Let me do this. He laughed. Okay, 7 it is. She spent the afternoon getting ready, trying on 3 different dresses before settling on a simple black one that made her feel confident without trying too hard. She did her makeup carefully, styled her hair, and for the first time in months, really looked at herself in the mirror. The woman staring back at her was different from the one who'd stood in the Hart House kitchen all those months ago. Stronger, more certain, more herself. She picked Ethan up at 7 exactly, and the look on his face when he saw her made the extra effort worthwhile. Wow, you look amazing. Thanks, you clean up pretty well yourself. He was wearing dark jeans and a button-down shirt, and she could tell he'd actually spent time on his hair instead of just running his hands through it. It was endearing, the effort he'd made. She drove them to a steakhouse downtown, the kind of place with cloth napkins and a wine list that required actual knowledge to navigate. They were seated by the window, overlooking the city lights, and Lena ordered a bottle of wine that cost more than she would have spent on groceries for a week 6 months ago. You're really going all out, Ethan observed as the waiter poured. I'm celebrating. I'm allowed to go all out. You are. I'm just not used to being on this side of it. Usually, I'm the one... He stopped himself. The one what? The one taking care of people, making sure everyone else is okay. It's weird being on the receiving end. She reached across the table and took his hand. Get used to it, because I'm going to take care of you too. That's how this works. We take care of each other. They ordered steaks and shared an appetizer that was basically just fancy cheese on expensive crackers, and they talked about everything except the divorce settlement. About Jamie's upcoming school play where he'd landed the role of a tree, a prestigious tree, according to Jamie. About Lena's latest project at work, a rebranding campaign for a local coffee chain. About Ethan's promotion at the warehouse that came with better hours and actual benefits. Halfway through dinner, Lena's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and her expression changed. "What is it?" Ethan asked. "Marcus. First time he's called in months." She declined the call and set the phone face down. "Whatever he wants, it can wait. Tonight's not about him." But the phone rang again 30 seconds later, and again after that. "Maybe you should answer it," Ethan said. "Make sure it's not an emergency." She sighed and picked up. "What do you want, Marcus?" His voice came through tense and angry. "I want to know why you're bleeding me dry. $4,000 a month in spousal support? That's insane." "That's what the judge ordered. Take it up with her." "You know I can't afford that on top of everything else. Rachel and I are trying to build a life together, and you're making it impossible." Lena felt a surge of anger but kept her voice level. "That's not my problem. You should have thought about that before you cheated on me and spent our money on someone else. This is vindictive. You're punishing me because you're bitter." "No, Marcus. I'm accepting what I'm legally entitled to because I gave up my career for you. I supported you while you built your reputation at that firm. This is compensation for that sacrifice, not punishment." Rachel says, "I don't care what Rachel says. I don't care what you say. The court decided, and I'm done discussing it. Don't call me again." She hung up and silenced her phone, setting it in her purse. When she looked up, Ethan was watching her with something like pride. "That was impressive," he said. "Was it? Because I feel like I just let him ruin a perfectly good evening. You stood your ground, didn't let him manipulate you or make you feel guilty. That's growth." She took a long sip of wine. "You know what the crazy part is? I don't even feel angry anymore. I just feel nothing. He's just some guy who used to be married to someone I used to be. That's healthy." "Is it? Sometimes I worry that I'm just numb instead of healed. There's a difference between being numb and being over it. You're over it." They finished dinner and decided to walk around downtown for a bit, neither of them ready for the evening to end. The city was alive with Saturday night energy, people spilling out of bars and restaurants, street musicians on corners, the particular buzz that comes with possibility. "Can I ask you something?" Lena said as they walked. "Always." "Do you ever worry that this is too easy, that we're too comfortable too fast?" Ethan thought about it. "No, I think we went through enough hard stuff to earn some easy. We don't have to manufacture drama to prove this is real. But what if we're just trauma bonding? What if once my life settles down completely, we realize we don't actually work?" He stopped walking and turned to face her. "Is that what you really think? Or is that Marcus's voice in your head telling you that you don't deserve good things?" She felt tears prick her eyes because he was right. "The second one." "Then stop listening to him. He doesn't get a vote anymore." Ethan cupped her face gently. "We work because we want to work. Because we choose each other every day. Because we're both willing to put in the effort. That's all any relationship is." "When did you get so smart about this stuff?" "Therapy. Lots of therapy after my divorce." She laughed despite the tears. "Maybe I should try that." "Couldn't hurt, but for what it's worth, I think you're doing pretty well on your own." They walked back to the car hand in hand, and Lena drove them back to Ethan's place. When they pulled into the driveway, she didn't immediately get out. "Thank you for tonight, son," she said, "for letting me celebrate with you, for being patient while I figure out how to be a person who deserves good things. You've always deserved good things. You just finally believe it now." She kissed him, soft and sweet, and when they pulled apart, she was smiling. "I should go. Let you relieve your neighbor and get Jamie to bed. Or you could come in, stay for a bit. Jamie would love to see you before bed." "You sure?" "Yeah, I'm sure." Jamie was thrilled when they walked in, immediately launching into a detailed explanation of the Lego spaceship he'd been building. Lena sat on the floor with him, helping attach tiny plastic pieces while Ethan paid the neighbor and tidied up the living room. "Miss Lena, are you going to live with us?" Jamie asked suddenly. She froze, piece of Lego suspended in midair. "What makes you ask that?" "Because you're here all the time, and Dad's happy when you're here, and I'm happy when you're here. So it would make sense if you just lived here." She glanced at Ethan, who looked equally caught off guard. "That's really sweet, buddy, but I have my own apartment, my own space." "But you could have your own space here too. We have a guest room. You could make it yours." "That's not really how it works." "Why not?" It was such a kid question, cutting through all the adult complications to the simple truth underneath. Why not indeed? Because your dad and I are still figuring things out. And sometimes grown-ups need to do that slowly. Dad says that about vegetables, that I need to try them slowly before I decide I don't like them. Is it like that? Ethan laughed from the kitchen. Something like that, buddy. After Jamie went to bed, Lena and Ethan sat on the back porch with coffee, the conversation from earlier hanging in the air between them. Sorry about that, Ethan said. He's been asking about you more lately. About whether you're my girlfriend, whether you're staying, all of it. What do you tell him? The truth, that I care about you and we're taking things one day at a time. And is that enough for him? For now, but he's 7. Eventually he's going to want more definitive answers. Lena wrapped her hands around her mug. What if I told you I want more definitive answers too? Not about moving in or anything that drastic, but about what this is, where it's going. What do you want it to be? I want it to be real, committed. I want to know that when things get hard, we're going to work through it instead of running. I want to build something that lasts. Ethan set down his coffee and took her hand. That's what I want too, have wanted for a while now. So what's stopping us? Nothing, except maybe fear of screwing it up, fear of hurting Jamie if it doesn't work out, fear of being happy, Lena finished, because that's what scares me. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, for something to go wrong, because in my experience, when things are good, they don't stay that way. That's trauma talking, not reality. I know, but knowing it and believing it are different things. He pulled her closer, and she rested her head on his shoulder. What if we just decide to believe it anyway? Decide that we're allowed to be happy without waiting for disaster? Can we do that? Just decide? I think so. I think that's what faith is. Not in anything divine or cosmic, just faith that we're capable of building something good. They sat there for a long time, listening to the night sounds of the neighborhood. Dogs barking in the distance, cars passing on the main road, the gentle rustling of leaves in the oak tree, all the small sounds that made up a life. I'm falling in love with this, Lena said quietly. With you, with Jamie, with this whole life. And it terrifies me. Me too, but I'd rather be terrified and happy than safe and empty. When did you become such a philosopher? Around the same time you became such a badass. She laughed and kissed him, and they stayed out there until the cold drove them inside. The next few months unfolded with a kind of gentle inevitability. Lena's work continued to thrive. She got another raise and was put in charge of a team of junior marketers. She moved into a bigger apartment, a 2-bedroom place with actual closet space and a dishwasher that worked. She started going to therapy like Ethan suggested, working through the lingering damage from her marriage and learning how to build healthier patterns. She and Ethan fell deeper into their relationship without any dramatic declarations or grand gestures. They just showed up for each other consistently. When her car broke down, he picked her up from work every day for a week without complaint. When Jamie got sick with the flu, she brought over soup and helped manage bedtime while Ethan worked a double shift. They built a foundation of small kindnesses and reliable presence. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Lena got a call from an unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Lena? It's Rachel. Her entire body went rigid. How did you get this number? Marcus gave it to me. Look, I know this is weird, but I need to talk to you. Can we meet for coffee? Absolutely not. Please, just 30 minutes. I'll come to wherever you want. I just need to say some things. Against her better judgment, Lena agreed. They met at a coffee shop on the opposite side of town from where Marcus lived, somewhere neutral and public. Rachel showed up looking smaller than Lena remembered, less polished. She had dark circles under her eyes, and her expensive clothes hung on her frame like she'd lost weight. Thank you for meeting me, Rachel said, sliding into the booth across from Lena. I haven't decided if this was a mistake yet. Say what you need to say. Rachel took a breath. I'm leaving Marcus. I wanted you to know, and I wanted to apologize. Lena had not expected that. You're leaving him. He's not who I thought he was. The man he presented himself as at work, the image he projected. It was all performance. The real Marcus is controlling and manipulative, and I can't do it anymore. Hush, how long did it take you to figure that out? Longer than it should have. About 5 months. I know that's pathetic compared to the years you spent with him, but why are you telling me this? Rachel met her eyes. Because I owe you an apology. A real one. What I did was inexcusable. I knew he was married. I knew about you. And I did it anyway because I told myself it didn't matter. That if you were really the right person for him, he wouldn't have looked elsewhere. And I was wrong. So incredibly wrong. Lena didn't know what to say. She'd imagined this conversation countless times, all the cutting things she'd say, all the ways she'd make Rachel understand the damage she'd caused. But now that it was happening, she just felt tired. I appreciate the apology, she said finally, but it doesn't change what happened. I know, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just asking that you know I'm sorry, and that you know you're better off without him. He's miserable to be with. Everything has to be his way. Everything is always someone else's fault, and he's incapable of accepting responsibility for anything. I know, I was married to him for 5 years. Then you know I'm not exaggerating. You know I'm telling you the truth. Lena nodded slowly. Yeah, I do. She stood up. I hope you find better for yourself. Someone who actually deserves you. You too. I already did. She walked out of that coffee shop feeling lighter than she had in months. It wasn't closure exactly. You couldn't close a wound that had already scarred over. But it was confirmation. Validation that she hadn't been crazy, hadn't been making things up, hadn't been the problem. Marcus was who she'd always suspected he was. And she'd been right to leave. She drove straight to Ethan's house. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and he'd be at work. But she needed to tell someone, and Jamie would have to do. She found him in the backyard with the neighbor's kid, playing some elaborate game involving sticks and a bucket. Miss Lena! He ran over and hugged her. What are you doing here? I came to see you and to wait for your dad. Is that okay? Yeah, you can help us with our fort. She spent the next hour building a fort out of old sheets and lawn furniture, listening to Jamie and his friend argue about structural integrity with the seriousness of engineers. When Ethan's truck pulled into the driveway, she felt her heart lift in a way that still surprised her sometimes. He found her in the backyard, covered in grass stains and laughing at something Jamie had said. This is a nice surprise, he said. I needed to see you. Had an interesting afternoon. They sent Jamie and his friend inside for snacks and sat on the back steps together. Rachel called me, Lena said. Wanted to meet for coffee. Ethan's expression darkened. What did she want? To apologize. And to tell me she's leaving Marcus. Seriously? Seriously. Apparently he's just as terrible with her as he was with me. Controlling, manipulative, incapable of taking responsibility for anything. How do you feel about that? Vindicated, relieved, like I'm not crazy for seeing him the way I did. She leaned against him, and grateful. So incredibly grateful that I got out when I did, that I didn't spend another 5 years trying to fix something that was never going to work. You did good, Lena. You saved yourself. We saved me. You were a huge part of it. No. I was support, but you did the hard work. She kissed him, slow and deep, and when they pulled apart, she said, I love you. I know I've said it before, but I need you to understand how much I mean it. You're not a rebound or a distraction or a replacement. You're the real thing. You're the real thing for me too. They sat there until the sun started to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, and Lena thought about how strange life was. How you could go from your lowest point to your highest without even realizing the transition was happening. How happiness wasn't a destination, but a series of small moments that added up to something bigger. That weekend, Ethan asked her to go away with them for a few days. A cabin in the mountains, just the 3 of them. A chance to disconnect and just be together without the constant pull of work and responsibilities. Jamie's been asking about it for weeks, Ethan said. Says he wants to show you how to fish. I don't know how to fish. Neither does he. Should be entertaining. They left on a Friday afternoon, driving 2 hours into the hills to a small cabin by a lake. It was rustic but cozy, with a fireplace and a porch that overlooked the water. Jamie was beside himself with excitement, running from room to room, claiming the loft bedroom as his own, planning out their activities with the precision of a military strategist. They spent Saturday on the lake. Jamie didn't catch any fish, but had a blast trying. Lena didn't catch any fish either, but she didn't care. She was too busy watching Ethan teach his son how to bait a hook, too busy soaking in the sunshine and the gentle lap of water against the boat, too busy feeling grateful for this life she'd stumbled into. That night, after Jamie was asleep in the loft, Lena and Ethan sat by the fireplace with wine and the comfortable silence that comes from knowing someone well. "I could get used to this," Lena said. "Yeah?" "Yeah. The three of us, doing normal family things. It feels right." Ethan set down his wine glass. "I've been thinking about that. About us. About where this is going. And I think we should stop dancing around it. You're at my place more than your own. Jamie asks about you constantly when you're not there. We're basically already doing the relationship thing. We just haven't made it official." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying move in with us. Not right away, not tomorrow, but soon. When you're ready, make it official that you're part of this family." Lena felt tears spring to her eyes. "You're serious?" "Completely serious. I love you. Jamie loves you. And I want to build a life with you. A real, permanent, committed life." "What about Jamie? What if we move in together and it doesn't work and he gets hurt? Then we handle it like adults and make sure he's okay. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're going to make this work because we both want it to." She kissed him, tasting wine and possibility and the promise of something lasting. "Okay. Yes, I want to do this." "Yeah? Yeah? Let's build a life together." They stayed up late making plans, talking about logistics and timelines and how to tell Jamie. Lena would keep her apartment for another month, giving them time to clear out the guest room and make it hers. They'd sit Jamie down together and explain what was happening, make sure he understood and was comfortable with the change. They'd take it slow, be thoughtful, do everything right. But underneath all the planning, there was joy. Pure, uncomplicated joy at the prospect of waking up in the same house every morning, of being there for Jamie's bedtime routine every night, of building a life that belonged to all three of them. The next morning, they told Jamie over pancakes. "We have some news," Ethan said. "Miss Lena is going to move in with us. She's going to have her own room and be here all the time. How do you feel about that?" Jamie looked at Lena, then at his dad, then back at Lena. "Like forever?" "Like for as long as we all want her here," Ethan clarified. "Does this mean you're my mom now?" Lena felt her throat tighten. "I'll never try to replace your mom, but I care about you so much and I'll always be here for you." Jamie thought about this seriously. "Okay, but you have to help with my science project next month. Dad's terrible at science." "Hey," Ethan protested. "It's true, Dad. You didn't even know what photosynthesis was." Lena laughed through her tears. "Deal. I'll help with science. Then you can definitely move in." They spent the rest of the weekend at the cabin, and on the drive home, Lena looked at Ethan and Jamie singing along terribly to the radio and felt something settle in her chest. This was it. This was the life she'd been fighting for without even knowing it. Not perfect, not without challenges, but real and honest and hers. 2 months later, she officially moved in. She kept some of her furniture, sold the rest, and integrated her life into theirs in a way that felt natural rather than forced. Her books went on the shelves next to Ethan's. Her coffee maker replaced his ancient one. Her decorating sense softened some of the bachelor pad roughness of the house. Jamie helped her unpack, carefully placing her things in drawers and closets, chattering the whole time about how great it was going to be having her there all the time. Ethan watched from the doorway, and when Jamie ran off to get more boxes, he pulled her close. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm perfect. Actually, genuinely perfect." "No regrets?" "Not a single one." Her first official night in the house, they made dinner together as a family. Nothing fancy, just spaghetti and salad, but it felt monumental. After Jamie went to bed, Lena and Ethan sat on the back porch like they had so many times before. Except this time she didn't have to leave. This time she could stay. "A year ago, I was standing in that house next door watching my marriage fall apart," she said. "And now I'm here, with you, with Jamie, building something real. A lot can change in a year. Everything can change, everything did change." She looked at him. "Thank you for being patient with me. for giving me space to figure myself out before we did this. Thank you for trusting me enough to try. I know that wasn't easy after everything you went through. It was easier than I thought it would be, because you showed up every single time you showed up." They sat there as the night deepened around them, and Lena thought about all the ways life surprises you, how the worst moments can lead to the best ones, how rock bottom can be the foundation you build something beautiful on, how sometimes you have to lose everything to figure out what actually matters. 6 months after moving in, on a random Tuesday morning, Lena woke up before her alarm. She lay there in the pre-dawn quiet, listening to Ethan breathe beside her, and realized she couldn't remember the last time she'd had a nightmare. Couldn't remember the last time she'd woken up with that sense of dread that had characterized so much of her marriage to Marcus. She was happy. Simply, completely, ordinarily happy. She got up and made coffee, standing at the kitchen window watching the sunrise. Jamie would be up soon, demanding breakfast and help finding his homework. Ethan would stumble in looking for caffeine before his shift started. They'd have 15 minutes of chaos before everyone scattered for the day. And then they'd come back together in the evening and do it all again. It wasn't the life she'd planned. It was better. Because it was real. Because it was built on honesty and effort and choosing each other every single day. Because she'd fought for it instead of settling for what she thought she was supposed to want. She heard footsteps behind her and turned to find Jamie in his dinosaur pajamas, hair sticking up in every direction. "Morning, buddy. You're up early." "I had a dream about pancakes. Can we have pancakes? On a Tuesday?" "Why not?" She laughed. Why not indeed? "Sure, let's make pancakes." They cooked together in the early morning light, and when Ethan appeared looking confused about the Tuesday pancakes, they pulled him into the chaos. Flour ended up on the counter, someone knocked over the syrup, and Jamie insisted on making a pancake shaped like a dinosaur that looked more like a blob with legs. It was messy and imperfect and absolutely perfect. After breakfast, after Jamie caught the school bus and Ethan left for work, Lena sat on the porch with her second cup of coffee. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through old photos, landing on one from a year ago. She'd taken it accidentally, a shot of her reflection in a window, and she barely recognized the woman in the image. Hollow-eyed, uncertain, afraid. She looked nothing like that now. Her phone buzzed with a text from Claire. "Lunch today? I need to vent about the new client." "Can't." "Working through lunch. Tomorrow? Perfect. Also, you seem happy lately. It's weird, but I like it." "I am happy." "It's weird, but I like it too." She set the phone down and just sat there, breathing in the morning air, feeling the warmth of the sun on her face. There would be hard days ahead. There always were. Life didn't stop throwing challenges just because you'd figured some things out. But she was ready for them now, had a foundation strong enough to weather whatever came next. The house next door had new owners now, a young couple with a baby. Lena had introduced herself when they moved in, welcoming them to the neighborhood without any of the baggage that place held for her. It was just a house now, not a symbol of her failures or her past. Just a building where other people were starting their own story. That evening, when everyone was home and dinner was done, and Jamie was working on homework at the kitchen table, Ethan pulled Lena aside. "I have something for you," he said. "What kind of something?" He handed her a small box, and her heart jumped. But when she opened it, it wasn't a ring. It was a key. "I know you already have a key to the house," he said, "but this one's different. I had it engraved." She looked closer and saw the tiny lettering on the key. Home. "Because that's what this is now. Not my place that you moved into. Our home. Yours, mine, and Jamie's." She kissed him, not caring that Jamie was 10 feet away making exaggerated gagging sounds. "I love you so much." "I love you too, both of you," he added, loud enough for Jamie to hear. "Love you too, Dad. And Miss Lena, can we have ice cream now?" "It's 7:30 on a Tuesday. Is that a no?" Ethan looked at Lena. "Your call. You're the co-parent now." "Miki." Co-parent. The word settled over her like a warm blanket. Not stepmom, not dad's girlfriend, not temporary presence. Co-parent, equal partner in raising this kid. "Small bowls, Ki," she said, "and only because it's a special Tuesday." Why is it special? Because we're all here. That's special enough. They ate ice cream in the living room, Jamie wedged between them on the couch, talking about his days and his friends and the unfairness of math homework. Lena listened to him with half her attention, the other half focused on this feeling, this sense of belonging that she'd searched for her whole life and finally found. This was it. This was what mattered. Not the expensive house, or the perfect marriage, or the image she projected to the world. Just this. Real connection with real people who chose to show up for each other. Later, after Jamie was asleep and the house was quiet, Lena and Ethan sat on the back porch one more time. They didn't talk much. Didn't need to. Just existed together in the comfortable silence of two people who knew each other well enough to not need constant conversation. You ever think about where you'd be if I hadn't come over to return that screwdriver? Ethan asked eventually. Sometimes, probably still married to Marcus, still miserable, still shrinking myself to fit into his life. I'm glad I came over. Me too. Best favor I never asked for. She leaned her head on his shoulder. You think we would have found each other anyway? If it hadn't happened that way? I don't know, maybe. I like to think we would have. That some things are just meant to work out. That's romantic. Don't tell anyone. I have a reputation to maintain. She laughed. Your secret's safe with me. They stayed out there until the cold drove them inside, and as they were getting ready for bed, Lena caught sight of herself in the bathroom mirror. The woman looking back at her was different from the one in that old photo. Confident, settled, at peace. She'd come so far, from that broken morning with glass on the kitchen floor to this moment of quiet contentment. It hadn't been easy. There had been days when she'd wanted to give up, to go back, to accept less than she deserved because fighting seemed too hard. But she'd pushed through. She'd done the work. She'd faced her fears and her failures and come out the other side stronger. And now she was here. Home. With people who loved her for exactly who she was, not who they wanted her to be, building a life that was messy and real and hers. She climbed into bed next to Ethan, and he pulled her close without waking up, an automatic gesture that still made her smile. This was her life now. Not perfect, not without challenges, but good. So incredibly good. As she drifted off to sleep, her last conscious thought was simple and true. She'd finally found her way home. Not to a place, but to a feeling. To belonging. To love that didn't ask her to be smaller or quieter or different, just to be herself. And that was more than enough.